What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Code Red Qualifier event powered and presented by Xfinity. I'm your host, Life with Panda, and joining me today is Reese Hub. What's going on, Reese?
Yo, how's it going on, man? How's it going?
It's going good.
We've been casting so many duos over the last few weeks. It's been pretty cool to get a nice change of pace.
Oh, dude, it's been a lot of fun, man. We love those duos events. But listen, we got to talk about it. We're not here alone, man. Somebody is making this possible, or some company is making this possible. It's actually Xfinity, and we got to tell you about them. Power your game with Xfinity Internet. Our Code Red sponsor for today, Xfinity delivers reliably fast gig Wi-Fi for clutch moments and big exams. Get inspired with awesome student exclusive offers for watching and playing your favorite games. Plus, get access for watching and playing our amazing perks to, like, I don't know, $100 prepaid card, 6 months of Amazon Music Unlimited, and no term contracts. Learn more at xfinity.com/student. Gig speed Wi-Fi requires gigabyte internet and compatible Xfi gateways. Actual speeds vary and not guaranteed. Some things that, listen, these internet providers are taking care of people, and Xfinity is definitely at the top there. So we appreciate them making all of this possible. But Reese, we got to get into it, okay? This is going to be an interesting duos event here. The Code Red events are always at the top. What are you looking forward to in today's games?
Look, like I said, we've been watching a lot of duos over the last couple of weeks. Like I said, it's always good to get into in the start of the season, see basically what we're looking for. But realistically, we've got the finals coming up tomorrow. I'm excited for who's going to emerge out and actually qualify through for that. The top teams, who's going to persevere up above all of the rest. And, you know, it's always good to look at the winner, and, you know, it's always saying, I'm going to be excited about the players who win. But I'm just looking realistically, the top three is going to be really exciting for me.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, top three is going to make their way over to tomorrow. So we got to talk about the format. We got to talk about how the qualifier works for these players that are competing here today, trying to make their way to the finals on to tomorrow. And here it is. Here's that incredible format. Eliminations, 2 points, and 41 points up for placement, meaning that you would need more than 20 eliminations to equal a victory royale. So finding a balance between the two is going to be super important. While W King is obviously effective in some formats, I think it's going to be more effective for you to focus on the late game here, get to that spot, get to those final few top 10 moments, and then focus on getting some of those eliminations. What are you thinking, Reese?
I mean, some teams just think they might drop a 20 bomb and feel confident about it. You know what? They're thinking maybe 120 elimination game and the victory royale, you know, 81 points overall. Put us up at the top of the leaderboards. There's always a couple teams who just think they can do it, but what we're usually seeing is those teams realistically can't. So I'm with you. You know, if I'm playing this tournament right now, I'm looking to play a heavy placement format. I'm looking to be consistent across the 6 games. The usual good stuff for a kind of a placement heavy format.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, consistency is so important across games entirely. Like, you have to remember that while eliminations are big, 2 points per elimination, if you're not consistent with the way that you get eliminations on top of getting those placement points, it doesn't matter how many eliminations you get. If you fall in 21st to 30th, it's just a problem. But we got to dive into what these players are actually playing for, and that is the prizing. If you don't know, you're playing and competing, again, for one of those top 3 spots, making your way over to the finals tomorrow, which is now competing for this prizing that you see right here. Big money on the line. First place actually being $7,500, Reese.
There's not many third-party tournaments who are able to offer that kind of prize pool, honestly, for first. Like, that's a really, really good, obviously, all the way down till top 8 as well. So remember, this is for tomorrow in the finals. Today, we're seeing the qualifiers. So, you know, what we're going to be looking out for is players who hit that top 3, like we already mentioned, because this is what they've got to play for tomorrow. You know, if they manage to hit the top 3, they qualify for this tomorrow.
Yeah, so look, you want your opportunity at this prizing. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, it's $25,000 up for grabs for these duos, and it's the opportunity to compete against some of the top talent in NAEs. So I've already seen some of the invited players that are going to be competing tomorrow, and it's a pretty impressive list of players. So ultimately, that's what you're going to be competing for. Top 3 today makes their way for that opportunity into the prizing. So you're going to want to play this consistently. You want to make sure that you're at the top, because guess what? It is only top 3. So it's going to be tough for these teams competing today to try to make their way up to the top of the leaderboard, but we will find out soon who has what it takes to be there at the top.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see how players change up through the tournament, because going for that top 3 when it comes towards the last few games, there's going to be a lot of teams who are out of reach, out of grab, that they're not necessarily going to think, all right, if we just win this game, we'll get up into top 3. It's just not going to happen. So up in the last 2 games in particular, I think we're going to see a lot of switch ups of teams being like, right, you know what? Time to W key. It's trying to get on. It's time to drop 220 bombs in a row to try and make our way up to the top 20, or sorry, into the top 3. And it's going to definitely be an interesting, especially the middling teams and the teams just higher than that who have a shot at getting the top 3, to see how do they switch up their play style.
Yeah, it's going to be about switching up play styles, understanding what's working, what's not working. Fortunately, there are 6 games here, so there's definitely some opportunity for these players to make a few mistakes early on, get an understanding of what's going to work for them, and then pick up the pace, because that's what it's about. Again, a top 3 is not an easy feat to get to. A lot of times you see qualifiers set up in a way that allows 15 teams or 10 teams to make it through, but no, it is only 3 duos making it over to tomorrow. But with all that prizing on the line, they're going to be competing at an extremely high level. But talking about competing, this is one of those first few events we're getting to see here in Season 8 of Fortnite, and I'm excited. There's so many new things here on the map that change the dynamic of competitive play. Reese, what is the most exciting thing that you're looking forward to seeing in today's games that's new to Season 8?
Honestly, change of map dynamic is usually what I've been looking out for when it comes to most of the tournaments so far. The cash caps, the third parties, the dream hacks, all these kind of things so far. In particular, when it comes to, the new crash sites. A lot of loot, like we've already mentioned many times across the entire season, new across the map split, 150 chests, tons of floor spawns, all this kind of stuff. But for me, most importantly, it's the dynamic of how that impacts the POIs around, the storm surge positions, the potential rotation paths that players have because of this. Are they grabbing those as power positions in the zone? And it's one of the most integral parts of a tournament that's often quite overlooked. It's just, where should players go in the mid game at the same time? Where should they position themselves? Where should they put themselves? And with these kind of new areas that have been integrated onto the map, I've got to watch and I got to sit and think. I'm like, how are these players actually going to utilize this? Are they going to land? Are they going to rotate? It's always been interesting so far, across the tournament so far in Season 8, just to see how that's impacted.
It is. It's going to be interesting to see how all of this unfolds, especially with the new rotation items in the game. We got to talk about the shadow stones and those cube floppers. I know you and I behind the scenes, we've gotten a chance to talk about it a little bit, but for those at home that don't know, the shadow stones have more or less made a return here in Season 8 from seasons past, and they're basically the same thing. But when you partner it with a launch pad or one of those initial bounce pads you find in those crash sites, it provides insane rotation opportunity. Like, it's pretty cool to see what we're going to see here in competitive play today, but it's about, will these players know or have identified this yet? Because I've only really seen high caliber players understand how to use these new items and when to use them.
I mean, it's been out on the social media. It's been all leaked over social media so far. Those first couple of tournaments, people are, not really sure of the new strategies. And now I think a lot of the players are starting to understand. If you pop a shadow stone, you jump on one of these high pressure pads, you're going to go a long way. And across the tournaments over the weekend, we didn't really see too much of that usage in terms of the end game, jumping on launch pads with the shadow floppers in particular. We saw it in that early and mid game for teams rotating a ton, because that's just, people know that by now. They figured out the strategies at that time. But for end game in a duos situation, it was really hard to actually just find 2 shadow floppers so that both teammates can utilize that strategy when it comes to the end game. So I am interested to see if maybe today things have changed up. Maybe people have come in with a plan to be consistent, get their launch pad, get their shadow floppers, and get straight up into the sky and keep themselves moving through those earlier rotating zones, and hey, maybe pick up a top 3.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about. It's about picking up that top 3. So that's one thing that I do want to talk about, right? Like you mentioned there momentarily, the shadow stones partner, or the cube floppers, I should say, partner with the launch pad in the late game. Impressive gameplay we've seen already with being utilized with this combination. But in a format like this, it's going to be a little bit tougher. You're going to have to make sure to manage what you're doing as far as eliminations go, and applying that pressure and taking high ground, because you can't sit up in the sky for too long in a format like this, because if somebody gets more eliminations than you, it doesn't matter if you got the VR. That elimination push could still put them higher than you on the leaderboard. But before we can get into game number 1, we're going to jump into a quick break, so make sure to stay tuned, and we'll be right back. We are back, everybody, to the Code Red Qualifier presented by Xfinity. Panda and Reese here breaking it all down, and we got some adjustments to update you on. It's actually going to be 4 games in total for these duos, so a little bit more difficult, in my opinion, for these players to try and clamber up to one of those top 3 spots. So every game's going to count here going into today's games. But look, Reese, we've seen how these duo tournaments can play out here in 4 games, and there's a lot of potential to see some top tier gameplay.
Yeah, I mean, there's a big switch up, right? Because when you're playing for a 6-game format rather than a 4-game format, you got to remember, like, one game, if you slip up, it's okay, right? A lot of other teams will do the same. But in a 4-game format, there's a high likelihood that some of the best teams in here that are qualifying through are not going to slip up on a single one of those 4 games. They're going to make sure that they keep flying, they keep sailing through, no slip ups, no mess ups, no nothing. So for teams who basically aren't doing that, they're again going to have to make a decision. What are we going to do? Are we going to catch up? Are we going to be aggressive? How are we going to play these ones out? Are we going to switch our drop spots? We're going to, potentially try to fight some of the teams who are doing really well and make them slip up at the same time. So, man, when you go down to a 4-game format, it looks very, very interesting. Definitely.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I'm excited to get into game number 1. But look, guys, for those of you at home, this is it. This is the action that you've been waiting for, and the potential to competing with some great names. I've seen people like Jack from NA East that are competing tomorrow, Avery. And without further ado, let's find out who's going to be climbing that leaderboard, starting with game number 1. Diving in, it's OC, it's Crazy. And, Crazy getting that weather station, it looks like, to themselves. And, wait, as I say that, no. It is just one solo player landing there? Oh, man, Crazy taking a ton of damage there to start the fight off.
Yeah, Crazy taking a ton of beans around the back, and Maple has managed to pick up one of the players and his teammates right now of Dragster, and Crazy now down to 7 HP against 2 single players up above, and he's going to have to try and play the peaks, play the angles, play wherever he can, and it's not looking so good. The jump shot comes out, and unfortunately, at the end of the run for Crazy. So, for Rennie's team right now, alongside Maple at the same time, they're doing fantastic. They've already managed to pick up 2 eliminations off spawn, which is 2 points each, and obviously they've claimed this drop spawn.
That they have. They've been able to show that they're the ones that are going to be landed here for the remainder of these 4 games. So really, really solid start here for Rennie and Maple. But it looks like they're not going to settle. They're looking for any more tags that they can get, as this team is just diving into this Camp Cod region. And this whole little spot that we see right here with the friendly forest close by with the blue cube has been a huge upgrade to the map, in my opinion, for everyone that lands in this area. Reese, what are you thinking about the addition of the blue cube?
I mean, this area previously, lame. This corner, not so good. So now the addition of that adding on up is so good, because teams usually have a real struggle rotating out of there. Now that they have to rotate past an area that gives them a ton of shield, so good for a lot of the players that are in there. So, for that bottom right corner of the map, this is like a huge boost, a huge addition for the strategies, and we've seen it throughout a lot of the other tournaments. The teams landed down there being super successful so far. So I'm hyped for it. I'm pumped about it.
Yeah, I'm pumped about it too. I love these new subtle additions to the map, on top of obviously the bigger additions like those crash sites. It adds a new dynamic that I think a lot of people just aren't necessarily utilizing to the fullest extent yet. But once this competitive season really becomes in full effect, I think we'll see it utilized quite often. Now, things that are getting utilized often, it's these reboot bans today, because we just keep seeing player after player go down here in the early game.
I mean, yeah, these guys definitely have the keys to the reboot van, and they're getting revved up. Same with Deal Play, obviously losing Nafan here. In Holy Hedge is an engagement that we didn't necessarily think we were going to see this early on, and he's decided to dip on out. I'm not sure if he actually managed to gain the reboot card from that, and I don't think he's going to be able to at this point. But remember, this season, we have so much time. These players can wait a long time for those reboot cards to go back to grab them at some point. So for him, he's going to hit the dip, disengage, come over here onto this west-hand side. You can see in that bottom right corner, in the map. The other team's nowhere near them so far, so he's taking his time trying to grab whatever loot he can. It looks like he's probably going to have to sneak back in to grab himself that loot and the reboot card, and then get the reboot off somewhere.
Yeah, that's what's going to be important, is getting that reboot off. I mean, with the reboot changes here in the season, there's still so much potential to go back, get the card, get the reboot with all the different reboot vans now located across the map, the extended time on those cards. Like there's a lot of possibilities. You don't have to force the fight in a 1v2 situation. Instead, you could just completely disengage, wait a little bit, and then go back for that card. But for a team like Photon and Navy, they got one elimination. They may still be looking out for that second one. So it really all comes down to how aggressive the players want to be and how often do they want to push each other. Fortunately, though, Brooklyn looks to be able to completely disengage as this other duo has no interest, I guess, in continuing to pursue this second elimination. So good, it's pretty smart on their part. I have to mention that because placement is going to be so much more important than those eliminations that you could get, especially in the off chance that Brooklyn could end up 1v2ing them.
I mean, I want to see that. I want to see a 1v2 going down, but for him, it seems like he's fueling up his car right here. And given the reboot van is right there, he clearly doesn't have the card so far. He's surveying the situation and noticing he can definitely see Photon in his sight lines from here on out, same as Navy down there too. And he's intentionally not going for shots. I do like the play, just sit in the passenger seat because of the way that those windows are fully blacked out. Any player who walks past can't actually see you in there. So you can see him now as he's been scouting that area and sees that team is now disengaging. I think it's time to go and grab the reboot card, which is inside. And there is, like we already mentioned, a reboot up above that he can go back up and get his teammate Paper Cup back into the game, getting playing. And he's definitely going to have enough time to do so now that he's noticed them disengage. So I want to see it happen. We want to see the full duo playing, but seems like a bit of an interesting play for Brooklyn just to dip. We're not actually sure if he grabbed the card there because it doesn't actually show up in the spectator mode.
Yeah, I'm actually interested to see if maybe he's had it all along, or if it was somewhere on that path that we just saw him running. But it does look like he's going directly to the reboot van, so he should have it in the inventory. Like I couldn't imagine him not having it. And fortunately for him, it does not look like this area is too contested, so he should be able to successfully get this reboot off. But it can be close because there are still other players relatively close by that could begin to hear this and decide, you know what, maybe these are the eliminations we want to get at this point in the game.
Yeah, and these are those players. Two separate teams in Sludgy Swamp so far. Dazel's team alongside with Space Monkey as well. And, now they're starting to get into a fight as well with the team who's managed to put themselves up on top of the POI. And that's a lot of tags coming out onto Dazel here right now. It's going to try and go for the big pot as Jack and Co decide to push up on and get aggressive at the same time. Here the charge shotgun go out. The crank fight starts to go as the one player starts to go up for high ground, and it seems to be baiting out. But I want to see where Space Monkey is the teammate, because Jack and Co so far are really doing a good job of getting onto each side of the wall and creating a pinch onto Dazel so far.
Yeah, I mean, just the control that they're able to take here is really smart. But you see Dazel's teammates stepping up, taking some tags, getting some shots there onto Deep Sing with Jack there as well. But oh man, the beams are out, taking tons of damage. Now Diesel is going to have to get involved. Does end up knocking out the builds, going to stop Jack from being able to get with his teammate. But no, now Jack's teammate says, you know what, I'm going to make sure that we focus this together. The 1v2 situation is out, and oh no, it's over. Jack and Disping ends up taking him out with pretty good ease. I mean, it didn't really take too much for Jack and company to be able to step up to the plate and get those two eliminations early.
Yeah, that looked pretty effortless, let's be real. They started up on the power position, the commanding spot, up on high ground. They started off with a big beam. They were doing a really good job getting a 2v1 going, and, they cleaned up the fight basically as they started it, fast and quick. But moving over to OC and Sudani, who's unfortunately gone down so far, as OC also goes down and drops down below, and pressure starts to come out from the rest of the lobby at the same time in the Bony Burbs area, and he's down to 41 HP. Great pump in the inventory. The one pump potential not looking too high, and going to try to pop the med kit at the back of the storm here, as it seems like the opposing team have kind of slowed down a bit. It's Logic and his teammate over there, maybe not feeling super confident about this push when it seems like they've already managed to pick up a single elimination. So I would be feeling awfully good, but here we go. They're just taking their time to do it at the same time as they start to go in. Logic tries to get the piece control all the way around the back as you see OC in the bottom right. Changes layer, goes up, tries to keep away from the opponents as he's chunking away, but OC on 18 HP, now down to 0.
Now down to 0, but listen, we've watched a bit of Jan Man and Logic in the past on these different broadcasts here with Boom TV, and they always seem to deliver. They know how to handle these engagements effectively, They're so smart and methodical in their thought process and taking these fights. So I'm not surprised to see 2 quick eliminations here for them. This is one of those teams that we'll be watching closely because I see them being at the top of the leaderboard at the end of this and making their way to tomorrow.
I agree. You're very right. Good catch. We have seen them multiple times throughout this season so far, and they have been successful. They've been in the storylines. They've been around. And steak and rice now. Looking into one of the slower engagements we've seen so far. All these other ones have been really fast. They've been aggressive, but with steak and rice and Domo moving over Prem and Dodia, another team that we've seen pretty frequently so far. You know, it seems like a bit of a stalemate, a bit of a spray fest as we see the third party coming out and getting a couple tags onto Domo here.
I will say this. I think this patience is the early game nerves, right? This is the first game of the tournament. They don't quite have an understanding of the caliber of players that are around them, so they're playing this a little bit more passively. But knowing Prem and Dodia, these 2 players are extremely aggressive. They know how to take these fights. They know how to be aggressive at times. So it's kind of interesting to see them play this a little bit more passively and just try to get the tags off before they fully engage here with Domo and Steak and Rice. But either way, smart play. Definitely understanding of what's going on here, but now it's the stalemate. Dodia, oh my gosh, taking a ton of damage, but delivering a little bit back there towards Steak and Rice. Now, Steak and Rice and Domo trying to dive into Dodia. Prem going to have to get there with his teammate and actually gets a nice tag onto Steak and Rice. Steak and Rice now has to stop and heal up. Dodia and Prem now have the high ground. They have a little bit more control than they did just moments ago, and this fight is starting to turn in their favor.
Yep, but both the slow down, starting to play more defensive, and Steak and Rice going for the wall, but getting chunked back now down to the low white HP at the same time as Dodia and Prem are pickaxe and double wall, and it seems like maybe the ramp phase comes through on. The big shot comes through, Dodo gets cracked at the same time. One of the eliminations goes through, Steak and Rice now down. The shakedown comes through, and Dodo now down below with Dodia and Prem up above. The purple pump now. What an upgrade from the gray. You love to see it. There's nothing better than finding a loot llama of a player. And actually the launch pad comes out. So he's going to try to dip away and try to get as many placement points as possible as Dodia and Prem have probably a different idea.
Yeah, I highly doubt we don't see them pursue this. But no, actually, as I say that, a couple shots fly in from the distance, meaning they have to take a second to kind of regroup and figure out what their next play is. You have to be careful when you're aggressive like that. You cannot afford to just take a fight unknowing of the other players that are close by. And this is one of those new areas that we've seen on the map that not a lot of people have talked about or utilized. And here it is. Rennie actually getting some nice shots there with Maple. Maple, another returning face here on the Boom TV channel, making some things happen in there. It is the bros gaming, the 2 bros gaming. It goes down here to Maple and Rennie. And a quick cleanup here for them. Obviously, they had the inventory and everything necessary to make this a quick fight. So it's exciting to see how they continue to take these engagements.
Yeah, and they're feeling confident so far. 4 eliminations to their name. Great loot in the inventory so far. And seems like a W key spree may come out from Maple and Rennie so far as they spotted the team up above using that zip line. And they're actually rotating awfully wide around them, so potentially not trying to WQ every single team, and that to me suggests they're going to be opportunistic with what they're going to do. Look for big beams on players who are unsuspecting later on. But moving over to Claw, other player. We've seen a lot of these players so far in our tournaments over the last couple of weeks, and they're looking very, very good in their positioning so far.
Yeah, this is where you want to find yourself. You're at an elevated point. You have a great view of everything going on around you. You know when you can take shots, and there it is. They're actually taking shots towards Rennie. Rennie trying to send some shots back, but no, another team now looking to be close, and they actually use a chili chug splash. Despite having some peppers in the inventory, they decide to opt for that, but no, Maple taking a lot of damage in the sky. It's actually Claw and company going to focus him, and Nathan actually gets the knock there in the sky and is going to go for that fight, but no, Gamma Claw says, you know what, I'm not going to let you freely rotate over to that elimination. I'm going to try to take some tags myself, and then more players rotate around. I mean, this is just non-stop, but Maple has now made it back. Rennie was able to get the res and the launch away. That is risky with the lack of HP that you have on both these players.
It's risky indeed, and he's left his teammate behind, and unfortunately he's been picked up on what is now a 3rd launch pad comes out. Rennie's just absolutely stacked on them so far, and he's now going to have to resort to using the chili chug splashes to get his HP back up at the same time, as there's a ton of players in this area just really awkwardly trying to fight him. And like we said, he's fully lost Maple. There is still chance to get the reboot off in Holly Hedges for him, but man, this kind of goes exactly back to what we were talking about at the top of the show when these new power positions where Claw and alongside Wazak are sitting right now up high. Tons of visibility across the map, and our top tier players are managing to utilize that, potentially going for yet again another elimination on more rotating players through by.
Yeah, they're doing a good job of just controlling this spot. Despite this not being necessarily the optimal position as far as zone 3 goes, it is still a really nice spot to get some tags here as these players are rotating through. They have a good understanding of what's happening and what good positioning looks like, and I'm impressed so far. This is what you want to see from these players, right? The high IQ plays early on, because this is only game number 1, and they're already showcasing the talent and the mindset that they have. That game sense is going to be so important when you're competing against some other top players going into the finals tomorrow.
Yeah, and that's what we want across the 4 games. They know if they WK, they go down early, kind of similar to what we've just seen from a lot of our other teams who got a little bit too aggressive. You know, that's a big flaw in a 4-game system. But for Gamma Claw and Wasak, we know these guys are just sitting up in a good position, playing the slow game out like a lot of the teams here have. In particular, we got Nate and Cole, who are just centered on the map, centered in the 3rd zone, classic positioning, highest chance of gaining that 4th zone, the next zone coming onto you. So basically gives you that next easiest rotate. And basically the complete opposite of this would be Figment, who's currently lost Koa and is at that far north hand side of the zone. But if you notice, Domo is here still as a solo too. So this seems to be a match of solos, in particular near Believer Beach.
And you know, it's funny. The last time we saw Figment alone, right, lost his teammate early on. It was when he was making that heel off play in Weeping Woods, or actually no, Corny Complex. And it's kind of funny to watch this come back full circle yet again, find himself as a solo player. And he actually has 4 floppers in the inventory, three med kits. Like, he has everything he needs to out heal Storm for a bit and play as a solo player. But you know what? No, he says, you know what? I'm going to use these resources, these launch pads that I have in the inventory to try and get ahead here and get a nice position in zone. And it looks like he's going to be able to do it. Now finding himself in a nice little spot here, going to build out with the metal. Smart play on his part. No one's focusing him. That's going to be a huge advantage here, because if people started spraying at him while he's just building this metal, those walls will not last much more than a second.
Yeah, and he basically had 2 options here. Land and harvest all the brick around, so he could have built a brick base and re-harvested that metal and made sure he stayed up to higher materials. Or he could have just gone in metal and just basically said, you know what, anti-spray measures to keep away. But right now in a brick base for themselves, Janman and Logic, unfortunately picked up by Nate and Cole. Our team, who we said were playing slow and calculated, it seemed like Logic's team got a little bit too aggressive, got on their W key horse yet again, and it did not work out for them. So Cole, you know, not one of the issues that we've just seen with the low materials. They're going to have all of these extra mats here from those 2 elims that they've had, so they can build out a huge metal base, a huge brick base if they want.
Yeah, they definitely can. So they have all the resources they need to continue to play this, despite these players trying to pressure them with what's going on. But no, it's actually Knack and Taco over here in the bush. Are they the ones that are pressuring this lobby?
Chaotic.
No builds, no boxes, and they're just like, you know what? We're going to pressure these players. And no, of course, it's Domo who's on the other end of that pressure. And now they've said, you know what? Knack, Taco, guys, they're just like, we're going to get in. We're going to jump into this box. We're going to get involved. But no, Domo, it actually looks like was able to potentially get away. Did he use the launch pad to dip out of that situation? That was actually pretty smart on his part in a close call, to say the least.
Yeah, I'm watching the Elam feed to see if he goes down when he lands, but he seems to be okay so far. So the rest of the lobby definitely playing a little bit slow. You know, in some other games, if you'd hit that launch pad, you'd be out of there. But here we go. He's actually landed in a rough spot at the same time. Now here it comes. The entire lobby comes out. He's in wood. Everyone knows that. He's boxed up right next to a player that's actually his own wall. And he ends up running back through. He has no play. Tried the best that he could to go back and forth through all those builds. But unfortunately for Domo and Steak and Rice, game 1 is going to be over now. That 5th zone is pulled to that kind of south side. Not a single player. Not one player in the box right now. And Sad Boy Nate and FN Cole have a plethora of loot on them. A huge amount of options that they can work with here. So it's kind of just a decision of what do we want to take.
Yeah, and that's the question, right? What are we gonna do? Do we want to play a little bit safer, have the heal off opportunities there for the late game? Do we want to be a little bit more aggressive? Do we want to build out boxes in the area that we're in and try to use the material that we have and recycle that and rotate forward? That's the question that these players are trying to talk about right now and get answered. But if you're Nafan and Ideal Play, you're in a good spot. You have yourself a bit of a high ground spot here, a situation that is going to be ideal going through the next few zones, but it could be a little early to try and put up that much material to maintain high ground. What are you thinking, Reese?
I mean, it depends on what they had, right? They were relatively close to zone. If a team had just been eliminated next to them and they had those extra mats, they'd be fine. But, you know, the materials they used, it wasn't a huge amount to try and claim that full high ground. Notice Nafan's still almost capped, and he also just got a knock out of the sky there too, which I don't think they're going to be able to get any of the materials from, because I don't see a harpoon in the inventory with player Nafan. I hear one coming out, but unfortunately I don't think it's theirs, so they're not going to be able to get the extra materials from that. But all of this absolutely worth it to claim in, you know, because at this current state of the game, you know, we're looking around at how many players are left, and, you know, is that last moving zone going to be prevalent? You know, is it going to go down to heal off? Almost definitely not so far. So claiming height earlier in these kind of matches absolutely is a good idea.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. That is probably the play here, as it has been a bit of a more aggressive lobby that we've watched throughout this gameplay. So the control here is going to be super important, and it looks like Turtleneck potentially trying to break out the high ground, and Ideal Playing Company were like, no, we're not going to let that happen. We'll just pressure you. Don't even sweat it. And now they're pressuring Dodia and Prem. Prem taking a lot of damage there from a little bit overexposure when it comes to that spot. You have to be careful. You have to make sure you're holding those builds, because otherwise you're going to get beamed.
That you are. And we're going to see the players start to rotate now. Code come out with the launch pad, the low pad, as in Prem and Dodia hit the high pad. Same with Nafan and Ideal. It's going to be a battle for height at the start of the first zone. It seems like Cade and Turtleneck are going for it, but more and more players now hitting the pad at the back side of the zone. It's Gamma Claw that goes up, and yet again another team in the back now, and not a single one of them is looking to land on the top on height, so it seems to be a free height play for them. But on the low ground, Ideal playing Nafan now playing the opposite of what they were before, the full low. But here we go, this could be the psycho play. The double land on front, the 88 shot comes out, and they all get chopped out. No, and they lose Nafan at this point. Now Ideal is left as a solo.
Yeah, this is tough, and if you're Ideal Play, you're just going to try to survive here. You're going to try to show that you can make an impact as a solo player. Unfortunate for Nafan there, going down to that fall damage and not in a position where he could easily get picked up. So Ideal Play stuck by himself. Turtleneck and Cade now trying to hold high ground by themselves, and it looks like the lobby's doing a good job of understanding that high ground was not really secure. They're going to spray that work together, but Cade says, you know what, I'm going to drop down. I'm going to get involved here, try to take some tags off on Cole. Cole gets a little bit of an exchange there, but it's not going to be enough to for them to take high ground. And as I say it, Turtleneck actually goes down. Cade by himself here, looking to make something happen. It looks like Cole is actually going to go for the high ground. Cole could potentially turn this fight in his favor, but no, Cade actually taking a ton of damage. Such a risky play on his part, trying to go up against him like that, and now he finds himself falling.
And the big charge shotgun from Sad Boy Nate up on high ground, making him a happy boy with that one extra elimination. Now up to 6 total for the team, and they're starting to spray down onto the players down in second height. They are left remaining up with wood only on high ground, so if a team looks up, they know that they're going to be on low mats. And Knack right now has actually utilized the shadow flopper play that we just talked about. We saw him with 3 earlier in the inventory flying out of the sky, so he's managed to make his way to endgame here alongside his teammate as well, still on the low ground Taco King, by utilizing the shadow flopper play so far. So if we see them up in the sky, we know in the next game we know who it is right now. But still up on high ground, Cole and Nate, they didn't manage to pick up a single elimination since we last saw them, but Dodia's team is so close to them and trying to knock them out, because like I said, they know they're low materials.
Yeah, and Dodia and Prem, they're a duo we've watched time and time again go for the high ground and successfully get it. So they know how to handle this. They knew that, you know what, it's not working out. Cole and Nate are just too focused on pressuring them. So they're not going to be able to do much. But now's the chance. If you're a team down below and you want to take out high ground, now's the opportunity to do it. But no, as I say that, Prem, one of those teams that was looking to take the high ground, has fallen. Now it is all up to Cole and Nate both of them still up on high ground. Very limited material, and the pressure is on.
That's it. The spray starts coming down below. The players start to go the 2v2, trying to figure out which way angles they can take with no materials. They're trying to get in the front of the zone, and the sprays comes out, but Knack in the back of the zone goes up and grabs the high ground playstyle. He's trying to get behind Taco. Knack goes down so far. FN Cole goes to the front, sprays inside the box, and that should be it over right now, and it is indeed for FN Cole and Sad Boy Nate, picking up an 8 elimination victory royale in game number 1.
Huge start here to the games. Victory Royale, 8 eliminations. That's 16 elimination points alone. Like, that's going to be a really, really solid start for them. But before we can get to that leaderboard and have a better understanding of how that's going to be looking, we got to talk about that first game. We got to talk about everything that happened. Reese, did that play out how you expected?
I mean, for me, I'm interested in height in particular in that match because, usually in duos, it's kind of hard to maintain it throughout the entire of that moving zone, right? From start to finish. And that's basically exactly what we saw. We saw turnover after turnover after turnover of teams just consistently falling down, a new team going up, a new team falling down. And it was messy, to be honest with you, up on high ground.
It definitely was. But for a team like Rennie and Maple, they were very, very aggressive. We're seeing there how that aggression worked out for them in the beginning, and it just didn't work out for them as the game continued. You find them falling early, but no, Nafan and Ideal Play, another team that thought they had it in the bag, but they just didn't, because guess what? Cole and Nate identified the proper time to take that high ground, hold that high ground, and control it, because they didn't have a ton of material to work with, but they knew how much material they had to work with and when they could actually take it using that limited material.
Yeah, and that's exactly basically what you need to do. And for the rest of the lobby looking up, and they see these guys just tarping on wood up in height, they know like these guys got no materials, but they did a great job to still be able to fight against those players. Anytime someone looked up for it, they got beams off, they got sprays off at the same time. So even though they had barely any materials up on height, just using wood, they still had a solid game plan to pick up a victory royale in game number 1.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. But until we can find out the results of game number 1, we got to hop into a quick break. So make sure to stay around, and we'll be right back.
When inspiration strikes during midterms, you need Xfinity Internet. Fuel your passions with speeds fast enough to power all you do. Get inspired with awesome offers exclusively for students.
An unbelievable connection means unbelievable speeds. Can your internet do that?
Welcome back, everybody, to the Code Red Qualifiers presented by Xfinity. Life of Panda, Resub here, breaking it all down for you. And game number one did not disappoint. Tons of duo action taking place from start to finish, and a pretty interesting end game there where high ground just couldn't be held consistently.
Yeah, it was a mess. The players were up. They weren't able to put a really solid plan into managing to hold it when it was just getting chopped and knocked and repeated over. And you know what? It's always exciting to see when you see high ground chop down, players go up. You see the changes, the turnovers over and over again. And obviously for Nate and Carrot at the end there, they managed to just hold it from that moment. They took advantage of the fact that everyone else had been chopped out. And then they finally managed to hold it with such little materials, which was a huge play from them.
It was, and that's the impact that you need, right? You need to make sure you have what it takes to hold high ground when you take it. We talked about it a little bit when Fifth Zone was more or less presenting itself, and that one team ended up having it on the high ground, but it looks like they expended a ton of material to try and get it so early on, and ultimately found themselves falling because they couldn't maintain it, and that's what it comes down to. Fortunately, in this season, though, you got harpoon guns, right? You get the opportunity to get some refreshes from down below if you can get an elimination or find some loot down there. But still, it is very, very tough to maintain high ground because launch pads are in the game, and Reese Hubs putting out tips on social media on how to take the high ground. So, but without further ado, let's jump into the leaderboard. Let's look at who ended up coming out on top here. And there it is. It is Sad Boy Nate in Flying Carrot right there on top with 57 points. So those 8 eliminations in that victory royale definitely helped them claim one of those top spots. But right below, it's Taco and Knack.
Yeah, and those are the guys, remember, who are using the Shadow Flopper play that we saw. Pretty sure we obviously just saw them land as they came flying down. It seemed like that's what they were utilizing in that last game. So that really managed to push them all the way up into a second place there. Now tied with Ideal and Nafan on 42 points, who were a little bit more aggressive throughout that game. We saw them kind of getting in a couple early games engagements. Same as Dodia and Prem as well. We saw them fighting way earlier on, but unfortunately, obviously, managing to try and spray up at height over and over, but they were just getting honestly just obliterated by Nate and Carrot spraying down onto them. So I think we could see in the next couple games Dodia and Prem having a much more successful game. The way that they were looking at the high ground, the way that they were looking able to take it, and like they had a strategy laid out for it, it definitely seems like they know what's going on. But unfortunately, they just got beamed by Nate and Carrot up on height.
Yeah, and look, it's time. We got to dive into game number 2. And like you mentioned, though, Prem and Dodia, they're more or less the team that they take a moment to identify what's going on after game number 1. Usually we see them blossom, evolve in their gameplay. So I think that's what we're going to see here as we get into game number 2, because there are only 3 more opportunities to make your way into one of those top 3 spots. And this is one of those final moments. So for Cole and Nate, they feel comfortable, right? Good, solid game number 1. But a team that's not feeling comfortable is Janman and Logic. They start off with some nice eliminations there before, and it looks like it's going to continue here in Boney Burbs as they pick up 2 nice eliminations and get the res on the Janman.
Yeah, and that's basically exactly what happened in game number 1. It was over so fast that we didn't get to see it in the previous match, however, though. But for Steak and Rice and Domo, remember, these guys were dropping on the kind of southwest side of the map. We saw them getting into that awkward engagement down there too, and they've decided to switch things up, go up to Steamy Stacks, maybe drop that they're a little bit more comfortable with, and obviously they've managed to get uncontested at the same time. So this is definitely already looking like it's going to be a better game for them so far, because it was a sad story in game number 1, seeing them as, I think, Domo just as a solo throughout the whole game, seeing them fight, get the reboot, it was a rough game for them. So hopefully, with this change of plan, it's going to work out a little bit better in game number 2.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And another thing that needs to work out here is Figment. Figment found his teammate falling here, and Eureful now in the game, trying to make something happen and actually doing a good job of setting himself up to get in this box. But if he's not careful, he could find himself falling out. But no, Figment actually gets the knock on there to Smoke. Smoke's teammate looks to be a little bit away, not close by. Definitely not
what is he doing?
in res distance or in a distance that's going to help him out. It's actually Ecliptic trying to just disengage. Fortunately for Ecliptic, he's going to have the boat. He's going to have the slipstream here. So lots of opportunity to just completely disengage. And for Smoke, he's probably hoping that that reboot card, a little adjustment here in Season 8 is going to help him out, and hope that Ecliptic can get him back into this game.
I mean, with that kind of split you're kind of playing for the reboot at that point. Leaving your boy left with a duo in Dirty Dogs is definitely not, something you want to be doing at that point. That's probably going to be a good learning experience for them, right? If there's a team landing there with you, even if you see them gliding, right, you have to just think, potentially we should just land together or close to each other. It's a mistake that potentially they had game one uncon there and they just felt comfortable about it. They just felt, okay, we can do this large split, we can claim all this loot, maybe getting a little bit too greedy, and then, well, it just doesn't work out.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, that's what it comes down to. Maybe it's the lack of communication at the team. Obviously, we can only speculate here from this distance, but it could come down to communication. And that's one of those things that we've seen a lot of issues with in teams and all of these team-based modes, right? Is when we transitioned over to trios for an entire year and duos, we saw a lot of solo players struggle to adapt because they had focused so much of their energy on being a talented solo player. But communication is everything in trios. You aren't or duos. You never have to be extremely talented as far as mechanics go, but as long as you're communicating with your teammate and fighting together, it's very easy to play this game mode out.
Yeah, that's how I convince teammates to play with me. I'm not a good fighter, I'm not mechanical, but I'll talk to you, don't worry, I'll be okay, we'll stick together, we'll get a good game plan going. But you're right though, yeah.
You're doing better than me. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not necessarily the best communicator or the best mechanical player, but sometimes when I'm in the zone, I become a demon.
That's it. The pop-offs. Kind of live for them. Live for the pop-offs.
Exactly. I literally have my best moments, I think, in game when all of my teammates are down.
There you go.
That pressure situation ends up making me a better player. It's kind of crazy. It's like a totally different player when you watch, but it'd be like that sometimes. But fortunately for Jammin and Logic, they don't have to worry about it. Both teammates back in the game. They're not in a situation where they feel pressured. No other teams around them. They can just rotate, get a nice little position here into zone, and hold themselves together.
Yeah, maybe we can see a team that will do good under pressure, because in game number one, we did see a ton of the players, losing a teammate and playing the rest of it out as solos, and we didn't see that many uses of the reboot. We were talking about it a lot, and we were thinking it was going to happen a ton, but most players just didn't really end up making it happen. So I'm thinking that we might see some good solo pop-offs in this game and potentially the next two, because game number one was riddled with solo players. And if you actually look right now, as we see Maple and Rennie's pushing up on that map to a solo player, where's this guy's teammate managed to go? We don't actually know who this other player is, as Maple and Rennie's continued their aggressive spree from game number one, and it looks like that could be an elim for them.
It does, in fact, look like a potential elim for them, but will they be able to act on it? That's the question. We saw aggressive Rennie and Maple were in game number one. Will they be able to replicate that same energy here in game number two? That's something that it kind of goes hand in hand with how your performance goes, right? If you're aggressive in game number one and you do well, you make it to the end game, like you have great placement points, then it makes a lot of sense to be aggressive, right? But for Maple and Rennie, they didn't make it as far as they could have if they had just been a little bit more patient. So maybe that's why we're seeing this patience come over them here in this final moments. But someone that's not patient, it's Domo and Steak Rice just diving into this fight. A nice little car start here, and to get this popping off, and it looks like it could help them substantially.
Could help them substantially indeed. The cones come out, and now the charged shotgun comes into play at the same time, and they've lost height. So Donnie and Steak have lost it up to Jack, the team that we saw be successful in that previous game, as he actually drops down onto a launch pad to save himself from the fall damage as the double spray comes on out, and see if they pick up the elimination before he lands. But no, he does not seem to, as the third party starts to come in now, and it's Cole alongside Turtleneck at the same time, who's trying to chop this build fight out and see if he can get some fall damage eliminations. But no, Domo's managed to go down and connect at the same time as Steak and Rice is popping that big pot at the same time. And now, will this go to a stalemate? Will these guys start to engage? Because it does look like they're starting to slow down things a bit, as they've got a good pinch, and this is just going to be a battle of the beams. Who can hit the first shot and who can end up then pushing in, or is it going to be a disengage as Domo starts to actually go for another angle and elevate himself a bit more?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, right, you can't afford to utilize too much material, but you can still try to get up at least one more layer to get a better angle on Turtleneck, and that's what you see Domo doing. And with the control that they have here in this position, the way they've split this area that they're in, it gives them a little bit more leeway. It's going to make Turtleneck and Cade not be as aggressive. They can't afford to just start ramping up because Domo can just spray down what they're doing. But as I say that, Turtleneck actually immediately starts cranking, and it happens to be at the time that Domo drops down. So now Turtleneck and company going to be able to take the high ground, and now Domo just trying to survive and hold on here, trying to hold any bills that they can. It looks like Steak and Rice and Domo are going to play the same box. This is a bit of a risky play, especially if they end up running into each other as they try to make some plays happen. But fortunately for them, they're not going to be expending too much material because they have good control of these two boxes. And now they actually get Turtleneck in their cone there, but not going to be enough damage to fully pursue this engagement.
Not in Cade and Domo. Looking at the perspectives on that right-hand side, Cade alongside Turtleneck being up on the height, being the aggressive team, but Turtleneck's being traded back right now down to no shield, and Domo and Steak and Rice looking for some angles, looking to go up, but the low materials comes out. The good ramp comes out from Domo to block them off as he's now claimed high ground. Now they're the aggressive team. They've turned the tides on the aggression of this fight, but it still seems like Domo wants to disengage. You know, we've seen on that bottom right screen, we've seen them repeatedly look for ways to get out, ways to get away, to be honest, from Turtleneck's team, and this seems to be it. The river seems to be the answer for them, and that big chunk off onto Turtleneck, the 100 damage that came out, I think actually from a third party, so I don't actually think it was the team they were fighting that managed to do that, was really that moment where they could say, and both teams now have pretty minimal materials at the same time. 45 builds on Turtleneck, and I'm sure Cade's not looking too more healthy, 52 to his name, but luckily for him, he did manage to utilize mainly wood, but there's a player currently inside of the corn, and the big 120 tag comes out from him, and it's Logic and Janman, one of our most aggressive teams so far. The pickaxe, the accidental pickaxe comes out to hit the body, and now the knock comes down at the same time, and Logic starting to get into one side of the box, fully beast up. The 73 damage shot comes through at the same time. That player's down to extremely low HP, but so is Logic, and he's playing things slow, but Janman's finished it up for him.
That is a beautiful display of a fight. I mean, the way that Logic controlled that was just impressive. The accidental pickaxe obviously was the icing on top of the cake, but, you know, it was really smart the way that he handled it. Despite him getting the full box, though, he did take quite a bit of damage. You have to be careful when you're trying to get that piece control in a fight like that, because all it takes is one significant pump shot to have to put you on your back foot and give the other player the advantage. So fortunately for them, they are going to make it out of that engagement. They're looking pretty solid, but you got to be careful.
Got to be careful, and that's actually what he did. You know, he did get chunky, overextended, but then he backed out, right? He slowed things down once he'd already lost that HP. He knew that if he traded, that could potentially lose them the fight. And that's the telltale sign of an experienced player, the fact that he didn't overcommit just because he knew that opponent was white, and he slowed things down, backed off, and kept his distance away. And like I said, that potentially could have won them the fight because it could have turned all the way around for them.
It definitely could have, but fortunately, they don't have to worry about it. They're in it. They're good to go now. It's all about finding a nice position here in zone. But looking at it here, it's our game one champs, and Nate and Cole both already situated on the highest elevation point, probably in this area, I would say. So they're in a good spot here to just pressure any players that come around them and get some nice tags off. You see them already starting there. It is Prem and Dodia just down below, finding themselves again at the mercy of Nate and Cole, just pressuring them from above.
Seems to be an interesting pairing that may go back and forth throughout the entire day so far. Of shots traded, obviously, from last game. That was more of the end game. Now it seems to be in the second zone, and Dodia and Prem not want to actually do too much. They're going to try and clean that hill over to the east side. Nate, at the same time, going to try and stop them doing that, trying to waste their materials, waste their shields off. They'll just drain them a little bit. As we see Despising alongside Jack. And then two more players who we've seen successfully be aggressive in game number one. And so far in game number two, 0 eliminations. You know, clearly in a muddled engagement with a lot of other players, and Logic and Janman being one of them. But hold on, that mythic burst AR is seeming to be very, very powerful right here onto Logic as he gets chunked, and that's more shield wasted. Remember, we just mentioned they've used a ton in that previous fight, but it seems like they've got plenty to work with.
Yeah, and as you say, they actually end up getting knocked out here with Knack and company just trying to continue the pressure and continue this fight. Logic suffering, as well as Janman, both don't have any shield on their persons as of right now. The lobby is just focusing them. Janman making a bit of a mistake here, trying to drop down with this other team still in the distance, trying to make something happen. You have to stay with your teammate here and try to maintain the layer that you're on. It looks like they're going to be able to heal up pretty significantly. Logic back to almost 200 effective HP, but Janman finding himself a little bit lower. Does have the chug splashes, but opts out from not using it because fortunately for him, Logic is going to have some half pots in the inventory. But now Taco, Knack, they have a little bit higher elevation point than what they had just moments ago because they were able to put that pressure on the Logic and Janman pretty effectively.
It is, and I want to see how this plays out for both teams so far because this is such an awkward place to fight, being on top of this elevation up here. And I really want to see how these guys play it out because if you notice that zone's pulled to the south of them, so they're going to have to figure out a way just to rotate in because they are not currently in so far. And looking at Ecliptic on the north side of the zone, something's gone horribly wrong over there. Not entirely sure what, but 2 teams in the zone, 1 knocked, the shakedown coming out. It's not looking good.
It's not looking good, but you know that's the name of the game, right? You gotta be on it as much as possible. But man, talking about things you gotta be on, like you gotta pay attention. Ideal putting himself in a really compromising spot and taking a lot of damage. Fortunately, though, he's gonna be able to piece control this situation a little bit, keeping Dodia just at bay there. Prem also trying to focus in here on the fan. Now they need to play boxes together. You see them, they're going to need to branch out, and there it is. There's the opportunity for Nafan to just create some separation here for this team. You see the pressure coming in from Dodia. Dodia not really overextending or even over pressuring this team, and it kind of shows. It's allowing Nafan and Ideal play to continue to survive. I'm surprised that there wasn't more pressure coming out, but obviously we don't know what's in the inventory. They could be limited on ammo. They could be thinking that maybe there's some other opportunities for eliminations elsewhere, but looking at the elimination feed, Steak and Rice is starting to pop off.
Yeah, that was that fight we saw earlier with some kind of awkward players at the edge of the zone. Single knockdown. I think that was the finish on the second player there. So successful fights for Steak and Rice on the north side of the zone. And right now for Dodia and Prem, they're just looking for angles. You can see Dodia peeking over the cone so far, trying to see if he can spot Nafan or Ideal play down below. And maybe if you get a big cheeky tag off, drop down and pick up some eliminations, or maybe just looking for players rotating at the same time. They're just really trying to play this out slowly so far, and they're in a great position to do it as well. They're up on the top of a hill and it's relatively close to center zone. Zone's starting to close, unlike Domo alongside Steak and Rice. You know, they got 2 eliminations so far, but look at the map in the bottom right. A huge amount of players to the north side that they're all gonna have to rotate through, and it's going to be tough unless they're wanting to try and fight past them, and they're trying to make a rotate now, and it seems like they may drop down to that side, and all of these players are going to have a tough time rotating, as this is exactly why the teams that we've got situated up on the top of the hills are eyes on them, and they're going to start going for that spray, that focus. But it seems to be okay for now.
It does, in fact, seem to be okay. They should be able to control what's going on here. But no, as I say that, the pressure is going on. The relentless pressure from below here. It's actually interesting the way that this fight is angled. You see Knack down below also getting some nice tags off onto Jack, just trying to get into the box. If they're not careful, though, Knack could end up getting caught out. Not a lot of this is his, so he needs to be a little bit more careful in the way that he's taking this fight. But now he takes a wall. He actually takes a wall where Despring was. If Despring didn't just back out of that box there, he could have ended up getting caught out by Knack.
Could have got caught out by Knack, and Taco teammate, they're currently the second place team, remember. And yeah, again, looking at that inventory, we see the 3 Shadow Floppers. Seems like they're going to be aggressive onto Jack, a team who was very successful, like I mentioned, that previous game. Straight into the box, the cone comes out, but Taco gets chunked, and Jack is now down at the same time. And where's his teammate? Nowhere to be found at this moment, and the shakedown doesn't come out. So for Taco and Knack, they're not going to find that out either, as we see a ton of players starting to rotate in that map in the bottom right, potentially even using the zip lines or the launch pad. Yeah, the launch pad comes out, so Knack and Taco are going to be able to reuse that, and I'm not sure if there's going to be any spray coming out, but Despising down below, not looking so good by himself, so we'll see if Knack and Taco can make this rotate a little bit higher up. This isn't the ideal position to land by any means, because if you notice, they have to basically go all the way up onto one of these hills. And that's a rough rotate if anyone starts to look down, like Janman and Logic, a team we know is extremely aggressive so far. And if they spot them on that rotate, it could be over for them.
They really could. It's kind of interesting that they decided to drop so low and try to take this, but with elevation points like this being the 4th zone, it's going to be tough to kind of position yourself here. obviously the most ideal solution would be to find yourself up there on top of that hill, but for Jamman and Logic, they're just not going to be able to secure that. So they do the next best thing. You see Jamman actually positioning themselves up close to where Yuri was, and now he gets a nice little exchange there. Figment, though, right there in the other box, they need to be careful. They cannot afford to take too much damage here. They do have nice heals, but no, Yurful getting knocked. Now Jamman looking to find the other player. It is Figment right on the other side of that. They're just going to continue to break in and pressure, but no, Figment is going to be able to get away. So now they said, you know what? That's fine. We secure this. This is our spot now. We're gonna try to play out the rest of this game.
And try and play the rest of the game, and it's great that that launch pad came out because they can just now reuse that when it comes to the moving zone, or if they've got to get to the 5th zone, right? If they pull a max, if the 5th zone ends up being on that west side, they already have rotation sorted. They don't need to reuse their own ones. They basically guaranteed themselves rotation all the way through to the end of the first moving, just purely by being aggressive on that play. And up in the power positions right now, Dodia and Prem, who have got some great RNG, managing to get a supply drop, which obviously will give them another launch pad. And sees that pump? Nah, it's an SMG. You always got to hope for a purple pump at the same time. But not so lucky. But for them, that zone did pull all the way to that far west-hand side. So I'm guessing they're just going to use the launch pad that they just managed to grab from that drop, get themselves across, and situated preferably on the north side, where they're on those hills, so they're going to be able to maybe even claim height throughout the entire moving.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be super important. They don't really have a ton of material to work with, especially considering this is just the start of 5th zone. So they know that they need to kind of get into a nice position here in 5th and ultimately try to get a refresh, because with less than 100 builds in each inventory, that's very, very tough to take these next few moving zones comfortably. Now, that's not to say that they can't do it, but you and I know really well that if you don't have the material to survive in these final moments, it can be a really rough go.
Be a rough one indeed. And sad boy Nate on the north side of the zone, yet again claiming height. You know, this is 2 games in a row that is looking really, really good for them and for Knack and Taco at the same time. Great loadouts going into the moving zone. So 2 different teams, or 2 top teams so far, both situated in a very, very strong position loot-wise and position-wise on zone. As Taco Gang's just getting aggressive and picking up another knock onto Brooklyn, who we saw was playing again last game as a solo, and that's going to be an easy refresh for them. But the whole lobby has eyes on them at this moment, but there is extra hard materials down there, and hopefully they can get back into their old base. But yeah, they got some fully built brick and metal that they can work with there, so they're totally fine. That zone's now going to pull up to the northeast, so a little bit of a hill in the way, but nothing too major for them. So let's see how they play it out.
You see, that's the ideal solution for them, right? Unfortunately, they were getting focused there for a moment. A nice little elimination onto Paper Gut, trying to slip through and recycle some of those builds. But fortunately, they had the existing builds. That was the best case scenario for them. But best case scenario for Nate and Cole, they find themselves on the high ground. And here it is. Could this be a repeat, back-to-back victory royale to solidify them as a top contender here in this game, in this tournament, I should say? That's the question, because they're doing a really, really good job of kind of holding off Jamman and Logic. But despite them not having a successful game number 1, but they could be looking to kind of change that here in game number 2, and that's why they're going for that high ground so early. Now, though, Steak and Rice out. Does look like he's going to be knocked. Domo going to have to make something happen. It does look like he's potentially trying to get the res onto his teammate, and Nice actually does end up getting him back into his box and should be able to res. No, he is not in zone, so he's going to have to get up, and he goes right into the box with 2 players. He, instead of shooting the shotgun, he shoots the harpoon and instantly goes down. That is a rough position to find yourself in, but no, as I said, I thought they were all but good in this game, but no, Cole and Nate find themselves going down. Logic and Jamman able to take the high ground, and now this game is going in a totally different direction, Reese.
Completely different direction that we thought. We did see our player fly up with the Shadow Flopper at the same time, way up into the sky there, so I'm sure we're going to see them come down anytime soon. But on the high ground, Janman and Logic really looking strong with their materials so far. There he is. There comes Maple down using the Shadow Flopper at the same time, getting himself into a great position, claiming full ultimate low ground as Prem and Dodia still in this from the previous game. They made such a difficult situation of high ground so far, and right now they're looking down, not up for Logic though. So at the same time, they're looking great, but look at that elevation change. If anyone looks up at this point, it could be completely over for Janman, but lucky for him, the whole lobby is far too focused on what's going down on the bottom.
I'm actually so surprised that nobody took a moment to look up. How easy it would have been to take down Height in that moment is just, it's a missed opportunity for the rest of the lobby. But fortunately for Logic and Jamman, they're going to be able to capitalize on it and just pressure down below. You see just relentlessly shooting down here onto some of these other players, and there's not much else they can do. Fortunately, too, it looks like they might be able to end this game fairly quickly, because the way that this zone is pulling, it's pulling towards the hill. Logic and Janman up on top. They have complete control as of right now and should be able to close out any players that try to go up.
And Nax still in this as well. Remember, second after the last game. He goes now down in third this game. Logic and Janman with 11 eliminations up onto high ground. Make that 12. And it seems like the 13th is just about to come through, but the launch pad comes out. I don't think that's going to save you very much there, buddy, as he tries to spin, tries to do what he can, but it's all over for Owen. The victory royale comes out from Janman and Logic with 13 eliminations as well.
Holy 13 elimination victory royale. I mean, look, that's what you love to see in a final end game. I mean, that is a considerable amount of the lobby. You have to keep in mind, like, even though when you go into these games, there's close to 100 players, like 13 players, that's 13% of the lobby. It's hard to say that you could just find that many players. So props to them, props to Jamman and company making that happen. But there was a lot of great plays throughout that game. Reese, what was kind of a highlight moment for you in game number 2?
Generally, honestly, the chopping of Height that obviously managed to make Logic's team end up taking it and then on winning the game out. You know, we saw that kind of classic battle during the first moving where two different teams were holding at the opposite sides and just trying to do what they could, but that zone pulled in the favor of Logic's team, which allowed them just to look up, shoot them out, spray them, and obviously managed to claim it from then on out. And this play too, right? That was fantastic. The accidental pickaxe and that fight early on we saw from Logic. So definitely from Logic and Co, the highlight plays from game number 2.
Yeah, it was just the beautiful displays of engagements there for Jamman and company. They did just such a good job of taking these fights and ultimately getting themselves in a position that they needed to win this game, and doing it with great fashion. Like 13 eliminations, like we talked about, I cannot stress that enough, is no easy feat. And you see why. They were able to control everything from start to finish, despite Owen trying to make something happen there in the final moments with that pad play. It was all over. It was all done, and now Janman and company take game number 2. But before we can get you the leaderboards and see where Janman finds themselves, we have to go to a quick break. So make sure to stay tuned, grab yourself a drink, and we'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody, to the Code Red Qualifiers presented by Xfinity. Life with Panda here with Reese Hub, breaking down two games. We're about at the halfway mark, and I gotta say, we've seen some impressive stuff. High ground being obviously the dominating factor, but I think a lot of that has to do with the consistency that we've seen in these elevated final zones. This is two games that we've watched where these elevation points play such a key factor in the way that these teams have to play it out.
Yeah, and after a big victory royale from Janman and Logic, look, let's be real. Let's just see how that's actually impacted the leaderboard so far. Like, I want to see exactly how these guys have moved on up after an okay game one, but not anything huge. And there we go, 81 points. So they've overtaken up into first place now after that 13 elimination victory royale. Taco and Knack now in second place at the same time. That's a second and a third from them in placement overall, and they're starting to pull away from the rest of the pack. And same thing with Nate and Carrot. They're on 75 after their game number one victory royale. So remember, top three is what will qualify you to tomorrow's finals. And there already is a little bit of a difference between that third to fourth spot.
Yeah, I mean, if you're finding yourself in the top three at this point, you're feeling pretty comfortable about how the remainder of these games are going. And honestly, it speaks to not only the caliber of the players, but even potentially the equipment they're using. Because if you don't know, like, in this area, in NA East, one of the biggest providers of internet is actually Xfinity, who is our sponsor of the event today. And if you don't know, a lot of these teams are probably doing this, but you should too. Make sure to power your game with Xfinity Internet. Our Code Red sponsor here, Xfinity, delivers reliably fast gig Wi-Fi for clutch moments and big exams. Get inspired with awesome student-exclusive offers for watching and playing your favorite games. Plus, get access to amazing perks like a $100 prepaid card, 6 months of Amazon Music Unlimited, and no-term contracts. Learn more about this at xfinity.com/student. Gig speed Wi-Fi requires gigabyte internet and compatible X-Fi gateways. So actual speeds vary and not guaranteed. So look, if you find yourself struggling with maybe some internet issues, hit up Xfinity. They got you covered. And I think that's why we're seeing some great plays here from some of these teams. So I'm excited, though. We're at the halfway mark, 2 games down, 2 games remain. And as we get ready to go into game number 3, that top 3 is looking pretty solidified.
You know, it's looking juicy so far. And like we said, you know, they're starting to pull away from the rest of the pack so far. And with 2 games left, I'm interested to see if we're going to see any slip-ups from Logic and Janman or any other next team that's also up there in second so far. And, you know, we got to watch out carefully for them in the early and late and mid game as well. You know, if we see them make it to end game, that's a very, very good sign for them on the leaderboards going into that final game as well. But if they get into any of those early game engagements, it could be wraps for them.
It could be, and that's the question that we got to see answered. Will it be enough? These 2 games that we've seen from them so far, is that enough? With a little bit of consistency leading out of this for them to maintain one of those top 3 spots? Or if they fall early here, could they find themselves losing their top spot and another team coming in and claiming it? That's the question we have to see answered, because there are only 2 games remaining, 2 more opportunities for these teams to step up to the plate and take one of those spots. And with a format like this, 41 points for the victory royale, I mean, that alone in itself, if these top 3 teams don't do anything, will be enough for a team down below from that 4th to 10th spot to take home that top 3 spot. So I'm excited, Reese. I know you are. But before we get into this game, I got to talk about it. We've seen high ground pretty dominant, but will we see a low ground come back here in game number 3?
I mean, these kind of games is a bit difficult to claim full low ground, and in particular in duos as well. Yeah. Claiming full low ground is tough because you don't have that firepower of a third to keep you and overtake the tarp, right? Usually in the trios, you're going to have one person tarping, the middle player can take over if he needs to, if the other person gets beamed up, and the person in the back can frag out. In duos, it's a little bit more difficult. Plus, with the game kind of style that we've got going on right now, you know, people aren't making it all the way to the end of that 9th moving zone at the same time. There's not tons of space that you can hold out. So height is being so dominant when it comes to these moving zones, and I don't think it's going to change too much going into the next 2 games in the second half of the tournament. We're going to see players go for it. They're going to crank for it. They're going to fight for it. And almost definitely they're going to win off a height as well.
Yeah, I definitely think you're right. I don't think low ground is definitely an option here. If you want to be one of those top final teams there in these final moments and walk away with that victory royale, high ground is going to be super important. Making sure that you take it at the right time is super important as well. I think a lot of these teams are undervaluing the timing here for high ground. They're saying, you know what, I feel comfortable taking it now. It's pretty free right now. Let me go ahead and take it. But then they end up taking it too early and they drop down. So it's time. We got to figure out, will it be another high ground victory? That's the question we're going to see answered here as Jan Man and Steak and Rice, two separate teams dropping two separate locations on the map, looking to make this game their own.
Yeah, and looking at the bottom right and Steak and Rice right now, there's two teams here. So it looks like they're actually being contested this game. Remember, previous game they were uncontested, and up at the top, Logic and Janman are fully uncon in Boney Burbs. So a bit of a switcheroo. Potentially it's the same team. The team that was fighting Janman off spawn has decided now to move up to Steamy Stacks, and we'll see definitely how that plays out. And it's actually, see Domo there down below, and not quite seen which team it is so far, but they've not landed the best spot. They've landed in the electrical building right next to them, which is only going to give them 2 chests max, really, in comparison to Steak and Rice and Domo, who've claimed the middle building, and at the same time the main building, which has a ton more loot. So already off the bat, Steak and Rice and Domo are definitely looking to have the advantage here.
Yeah, they definitely are, especially you look at this inventory. I mean, starting off with a pump shotgun and an SMG is pretty solid in itself, but also having full shield here onto Steak and Rice, this is the start you need, especially when you're now being contested by a team that potentially you weren't contested by before. So they're going to have to play this smart. Fortunately for the other team, it does look like they're going to be able to take the stacks up here, or at least utilize the stacks effectively. And that is in fact a llama clambering right through the stack there. Potentially Navy's considering going for it, but in my eyes it may not be worth it at this point.
Yeah, he has barely any materials. He can't actually box it up, so he's not going to be able to do enough damage to actually end up finishing at the same time. And he might be able to get enough ammo. You can see he managed to get tons right there from that first one to the mini ammo. And it seems like if you look at the map in the bottom right, there's not that many teams in the vicinity, or the players, sorry, that are contesting him in the vicinity. So it was definitely worth it for them. But here we go. Steak and Rice is now pushing on it, and he knows what he's going to be able to do. And the full box comes out using the very minimal materials that he's getting. Navy goes down. He had all of that loot from the llama at the same time. So that one elimination from Steak and Rice is going to be critical for him. And now, this is actually really difficult when you see the body end up flying through here. If you pick up an elimination on it, you need a harpoon to be able to grab the loot. So from Navy's POV, he's going to end up sitting in the middle of the kind of flying area in the reactor here, which is actually going to make it really, really tough for Domo and Rice to be able to grab all of those materials that they've just managed to earn themselves. There you go, Domo. Let's see if they've managed to figure this one out. Have they actually landed here enough to know that they need a harpoon yet?
It does not look like it. Look, that's actually a smart play on the other player's part. You don't want to ever give your other players advantages that you didn't have, right? So even though you go down, the last thing you want to do with your teammates still up is give them all of your loot. So smart play on their part. Mad respect for being able to figure that out there. But will the other team be able to figure out how to get that loot? Harpoon or not, you're going to have to figure something out, and they're probably not going to waste the time to try and get that sorted. So we'll see them probably just rotating away here. But speaking of teams that are rotating away, it looks like Dysel and Space Monkey actually see another team there in the distance, and they're playing it cautiously. They're not going to go ahead and take shots quite yet, but they're looking for it. They don't want to just let any team roam around them freely.
What they're doing indeed. Managed to get definitely not enough materials at this point. 24 builds total. Not looking so hot at this early stage, and Diazel's managed to get a ton of brick, which obviously this northwest corner of the map is notoriously good for, but they're going to need to make sure they get enough metal, get enough wood, get enough all of those other materials. But for Diazel, just chilling, just scouting the area out, checking for the players inside there. And you know, the game plan so far not fully established. We can tell, potentially a bit nervous for the tournament, and the people they've got their eyes on is Jack and Despising, a team who, again, I've mentioned a few times, has been very, very successfully aggressive in the early few games, or in the early game, sorry, the first one. Last game not being so successful, but game number 1 was definitely good for them. So, you know, if I'm going to put a team on to win that fight, I'm pretty sure I know which one it's going to be.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with you, especially looking at the inventory, seeing that legendary assault rifle. It genuinely does not get much better than that. I mean, in my opinion, even though there are other assault rifle types, don't get me wrong, there's not one better than that beautiful legendary assault rifle. So it's good to see that in the inventory, and the damage output that you can create with that is going to give any team that has it in their inventory a huge advantage. So props to them for being able to pick that up pretty quickly. Nice RNG blessing them there in Coral Castle. But people that are also blessed, it looks like Casual Uber here, not only driving or in the car at least, does have an epic variety of that assault rifle too. So good loadouts here for some of these players. So potentially a good start. However, yep, there it is. The build's not looking too good. So they are going to have to start picking that up pretty quickly if they want to be successful in the mid and late game.
They are, and they're going through a place where materials seem to already have been harvested. The metal's already disappeared from risky reels so far. So they're going to have to manage to pick up something else from there from Owen and Boozy. And remember, these are the teams who came second in the previous game. Owen, in particular, was the one who hit that launch pad, the desperation play to try and take height. Unfortunately, didn't end up working out so well for him. But they're going to make a slow rotate through, grab that metal that they can. They're looking stacked, though. Like, realistically, like what is it? Maybe 200 metal? So 500 wood, 500 brick, 200 metal. Got themselves a nice car for rotates, launch pads, amazing heals, great ammunition at the same time, and they're already hitting the rotate. So, like, for these guys, I'm not overly concerned about that little bit of lack of metal. I'm just thinking these guys need to put themselves in a good position now, later on, and get a little bit deeper into the zone as move over to Cade. Do you like going to the spot? I've been here a good few times, and it's not done me well, but I feel like it could do me well in terms of loot at some point.
I was actually just about to ask what your thoughts are on these areas, and that kind of answers that for me. But Cade and Turtleneck are looking to take advantage of it. I think the slurp barrels in these areas, the specific ones at least, are super nice. It's a nice advantage to have when you drop in, and you can just heal up quite quickly. But you never know, right? You can land there, and the chest that's in there can give you something great, or it could give you nothing, and you find yourself struggling to go up against any other team as you begin to rotate, because that's not enough, at least in team-based modes, to work with as a team. So solos, yeah, I think there's some potential there, but unless you're doing some kind of split drop there in team modes, it's just not going to work out in your favor. Fortunately, though, Turtleneck, Cade, they were able to hit that on the rotate, and it was not hit quite yet, so gives them a little bit of an advantage as, again, another epic assault rifle here in this inventory. I mean, the loot we've seen from these players is pretty awesome, and I'm kind of wanting to VOD review this later and figure out where all these players are going, because I need this RNG in my life.
Yeah, I mean, they managed to figure it out, right? I mean, we've not figured this out. If you watch my duel games, you'll definitely not see loot reflecting this by any means. It's grey, it's green, it's empty. It's not looking fantastic for me in particular at the same time. So yeah, gotta have a look back and figure out what Steak and Rice and Domo are doing. They've made a deep rotate at the same time. Remember, we saw these guys in particular all the way up in the northeast corner at Steamy Stacks, and that's a far rotate for them to go. They noticed pretty early on that this is a west-facing zone and took advantage of that, right? Remember, they clearly claimed the loot from the llama that we saw earlier on. They figured out the harpoon play, got an early rotate using one of the cars, and have pushed all the way over to that west side. Very similar to Rennie and Maple. Pretty much exactly the same. Good loop. Managed to get the car, trying to rotate early into that west-hand side to the mid-map, relatively free for them at the moment. And not a lot of scuffed teams so far. A lot of the teams that we've been looking for are looking really, really good on loot, materials, positioning, and honestly, everything.
Yeah, I think these players are playing a little bit differently this time around. They've got two games in the bag. They understand how this game has to be played out, so they're playing a little bit more patiently. And that's smart on their part. They understand now what the players that they're going up against, how they have to handle this. The last thing they want to do here in game number 3 is go down early. So really, it's really good on them to be able to figure that out quickly. But speaking of things that they need to figure out quickly, it's actually Prem and Dodia over there getting pushed by another team. And is this Nafan already over there in ideal play just now trying to get involved?
Seems like it is, and it wouldn't be unlike Prem and Dodia to get involved from what we've seen so far, but ideal play and Nafan are definitely not ones to back down without a fight that we've watched repeatedly, in particular them being pretty successful in it in game number 1. So for them, now basically spraying down from up above to the players down below, and you see Steak and Rice and Domo are around. They're in the area too, so we don't want to see Ideal and Nafan over peak like we have in previous games. And even down below, we see Owen's team down there too, as we actually hold on, see Prem start to go up. The box play starts to come out. The nice cone and the full piece control coming out from Prem, and the big box plays come out. The cones comes out yet again, and here we go. Prem tries to get straight into the box. The white tags come on out. The ramp comes through. The charge shotgun held, and that's one single knock for Dodia to start with. But here come the third party spraying out the floor, and I'm not sure if they're going to be able to get the second elimination from this, but they've certainly managed to capitalize on the first one, and that was some beautiful fighting, some beautiful mechanical piece control from Prem.
That was a great show of how to handle an engagement in that situation. You see them being able to clean that up fairly quickly, and ultimately they didn't get third party. This is the decision making that I'm kind of surprised about, especially with like Owen, for example, Owen and company being so close. It would have been fairly easy for them to get involved, get a couple shots in, potentially get an advantage, and then push in. And other teams, even like Crazy over here, Crazy and company in that house too. I mean, so many players in this one area, yet Dodia and Prem were able to take that fight unscathed. A bit interesting.
It's good. Luckily for them, to be honest, you know,
It really is.
Potentially, it's the elevation that they managed because, you know, for Owen's team, they're down low, right? And that fight happened kind of high up, and we saw the floor get shot out. So it seems like Owen's team was probably the perpetrator that managed to do that. They were the ones that were being annoying on the side. You know, that team that you don't want to happen when you're in your fight. You're trying to fight, you're trying to piece them up, and someone starts shooting on your floor. It's a great play from Owen's POV, but if you're the one fighting, you're going, stop shooting me, please. I'm trying to win the fight.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely going to be the mindset you have going into it. The last thing you want to do is get pressured in any of these games, and the pressure has been a little less here in game number 3, which is kind of surprising. Obviously, there's a decent amount of players here in this area, especially that have been definitely a bit more passive. But maybe that's the way. Maybe that they're understanding that this is going to be what keeps them alive here in these final moments. So fortunate for them, though. They find themselves in a really nice spot here. It's Casual, Uber, and Fast Fox set up right next to one of these crash sites, and it looks like the zone could potentially pull in their favor. So hopefully, with the amount of material that they have utilized at this point, they should be able to get zone here. But no, they said that's not going to be enough. They're going to take some tags off. It's not going to be anything major here as they just take some shots off at the car. But you know what? Public service announcement. If you're playing this and you have no true way to know if you're going to get an elimination, don't take shots at the cars rotating. Just let them go. It's just a waste of your ammo at that point.
Please, for the sanctity of many players, please just rotate when you see a car. Just let it go. Just let it go. Especially if you're low on ammo. If you've got tons of ammo, you're in a good position, go for it. But if you're all rotating, there's no need. There's no need to start spraying at the cars as we rotate. Let's all get into a good position, then maybe fight afterwards, you know? Let's make the good plays about it.
Yeah, exactly. It really comes down to utilizing some of that game sense that you've grown over the time playing this game to understand that it might not be the right call in that moment. But for a team like Figment and Yerful, they're set up really nicely. You see that legendary pump shotgun in the inventory. I mean, literally, that's like having an additional player, right? You being able to hit that 203 shot with some accuracy, of course. I mean, it just gives you a huge advantage over anybody else in this lobby, especially in the final moments. But you and I kind of had this conversation too about the charge, the way that you can kind of play the charge shotgun this season, especially in those final moments, is so incredibly useful. So I'm surprised that we haven't seen more people try to utilize the charge shotgun here. What are you thinking about the charge here in Season 8?
I mean, it's fantastic in a team mode in particular, but for a guy like Prem right now, left alive as a solo, it becomes a lot more difficult. It's a weapon that is really best utilized in teams, right? When you've got, say, as Dodia, his teammate, who's able to do the edit and the builds, and he can just sit, hold, and charging it, and really take advantage of players who are walking by at that point. But for a solo player, man, it becomes so much more difficult to utilize that charge. It absolutely has its place in team modes in particular. I think it's the strongest shotgun for the fragger of your team to pick up. But realistically, when you're left alive as a solo like Prem is, it's a tough world. It really is to try and do whatever you can to stay in the game.
Yeah, I gotta agree. Unfortunately, you can't craft back, right? If I'm not mistaken,
cannot.
When you commit to that charged shotgun, you commit to it. It doesn't matter if you have nuts and bolts. You can't bring it back to a lever or bring it back to a pump. So unfortunately for him, he is going to be stuck with that unless he finds another one down on the ground. But his teammate was down there close, so he should be able to get the card and potentially get him back into the game. However, he could also just pick up whatever shotgun he had. it might be worth just utilizing his shotgun and not trying to bank on the fact of reboot, despite there being even more reboot opportunities here in Season 8. But Knack, smart play there. I don't think we've seen a lot of players utilize this, but if you see a chest close by and you're maybe lacking in something in your inventory, go ahead and shoot that chest out. See what it has to offer, because you never know. It could be that epic or legendary pump shotgun you so desperately need in that inventory to make something happen.
Fingers crossed for them, honestly. In particular, that's the second time we've seen Jan Man actually with a gold pistol in his inventory. And I have not seen one of those the entire season, so I'd quite like to figure out where he managed to get those from 2 games in a row, or 2 out of the 3 games at least that we've seen so far. And that's actually one of those things we utilize about ammo that we were talking about. One player with the pistol, which is only going to use that mini ammo, whereas the other player with the AR, and he's only got 150 ammo for that. So if that was split across 2 people, that would be not great, let's be real. It wouldn't be fantastic for them. And going back over to Jack and despising. Just editing this floor, you know? Just trying to keep the hands warm. Trying to keep the brain warm, you know, as they just chill out here as they pulled that 4th zone.
That's the one thing about passive gameplay that I think a lot of these players struggle with, is when you're in a position and you're kind of at a standstill for a considerable amount of time, you end up kind of going a little stir crazy. But unfortunately for Jamman and Logic, that stir crazy is now ended as they get the full elimination on to Steak and Rice, and now Domo going to go down as well. But Prem is going to be the one that ends up picking that up there from another angle. Janman and Logic, though, they said, you know what, it's not worth us trying to go for this loot, especially with this other team close by, and it happens to be our Game 1 winners in Cole and company. So could you imagine a 2v2 situation, Janman, Logic, and Cole and company? That would be a fight to see.
That'd be a fight to see. That's obviously some of our most successful teams so far that we've seen today. So if they were able to go, you know, back to back against each other, that could be a very, very, very interesting fight. And look, I'm down to see it. I'm down to watch it so far. I want to see it happen. I want to see it go down. I want to see that leaderboard close on up at the top. I want to see other teams potentially pulling up as we go into that final next game after this one. But let's focus on game number 3 right now. You know, let's focus on see what we got as we got Fast Fox and Casual. Basically, everyone's actually just in the zone. Pretty much everyone's managed to rotate so far. So that 15 seconds of just waiting and trying not to do anything as they patiently look at their mini-map, hoping that they've pulled the 5th zone.
Yeah, they have pulled 5th zone, and now it's just about playing this out smart. You got the advantage here in the position. Just play it patiently. You know, these teams are going to come to you, get the eliminations as they begin to rotate. And I think that's what it boils down to, is where this 5th zone is going to present itself and which team is going to be blessed with that beautiful zone RNG. And it's not going to be Fast Fox and Casual Uber, as they have the max pool distance here in zone number 5. So they're going to have to begin to rotate. The launch pad, though, I don't know why they're waiting a little bit for this pad, because with all the tree cover here and the crash site cover, they should be able to freely rotate forward without taking too much damage. But they were waiting for that other team. That's what it is. They said, you know what, Rennie, we want to make sure we get some tags on you before we let you just rotate.
Yeah, and he's lucky to still be in it, honestly, at this point.
Yeah.
The huge beams he got and the fact that no one was able to kind of finish him up there was intense for him. And honestly, I think it may have been because the controller players were spraying on him, and once you've hit that Shadowstone, you end up losing the aim assist on that at the same point. So I think he was lucky about who was the one that was actually being able to shoot on him. But Taco right now alongside Knack picking up more eliminations. You know, a team who we've seen, I think, winning many actually in that previous game in the 5th zone. They were picking up a bunch of elims here, so this is the time that they seem to be fragging out.
Yeah, they are, and that's what they need. They want to solidify one of those top spots. You need those eliminations as well, but you got to be smart. You can't find yourself overextending like we're seeing here from Casual Fox and Fast Fox and Casual Uber, actually, because they overextended. Casual Uber is out, and now Fast Fox is out as well. See, again, if they had just used that pad early, rotated towards zone, they would be in a much better spot. They wouldn't be back in the lobby. So, especially here in game number 3 being such a vital point in all of this, it's rough to see the potential that they had just end up going to waste. But fortunately for people like Janman and Logic that are looking to repeat a victory royale, that's a good sign as that lobby number starts to dwindle and they can just clean up and get the victory royale.
That they can indeed, and they're just in such a good spot. Let's see how it ends up working out for them right now. If they hit the short pad to try and get ahead, but they're not the only ones looking for high ground. And they've said, no, I'm going back. I'm going back. I'm not having it. Logic stayed up there. He's used his brain, decided not to go for that. And I think what they're deciding to do instead as Janman comes back is actually just hit that high pad. You know, they're going to take the short pad, and I think right now they're going to potentially go for the retake as the spray starts to come in and the launch pad goes out. So it's going to be for nothing at this point, as here we go. All the zones start to move on out. Taco tries to get ahead, and let's see, is anyone going to be able to try and take it from the guys who have been sitting all the way up on height this whole time?
You know, I think Taco for a moment forgot he didn't have a charge shotgun. He only had the pump, and as I say that, he actually ends up getting knocked out. That is a tough call here, and it is Logic and Jamman trying to go back for the high ground. Will they be able to hold it? That's the question. Knack now having to drop down there with Taco, and the pressure is on. They do find a nice layer here that's uncontested, but they are essentially that second height position. So if they stay there for too long, Jamman Logic might begin to pressure them more than they would like. And is that Jamman getting contested here? Fortunately, Logic's still on the high ground. He's going to be able to push that other player back, but that is tough. They have now lost the high ground because they had to fight this player. So now it's a 1v2 situation, actually. Rennie's still on the high ground. Logic going to go back for it, looking to get connected here, and does. Logic now has the high ground, but players are padding. Owen jumping in to fight as well. This is the chaos we were talking about. When you take high ground too early, you now have to worry about all these other players wanting to take it too. So unfortunately, it looks like Jamman's going to have to play this out by himself. Will it be enough to get those points and maintain one of those top 3 spots? That's going to be something we see here in just a moment.
Yep, the shot missed comes out from Boozy up onto high ground. Unfortunately, he's a solo. Janman's a solo. There's duos up in the sky, but hold on. The huge beams come out from him, and he's managed to now pick up Despising at the same time, and it could be a solo victory royale for Boozybon if he keeps playing this the way that he has been so far, but he is only left down to wood. The players down below will start to recognize that and look up. If they do, they'll know exactly what they can do. But the pad comes out, lands straight onto high ground, but he's down and he's out and he's dropping layers down by himself right now. And it was Taco King and Knack, the 2 players who used the Shadow Flopper launchpad strategy yet again, but this time to utilize a high ground retake. They came second in game number 1. They came third in game number 2, but can they take a first in game number 3?
That's the question we're going to see get answered here in just a moment, because they have the potential. They had high ground at one point. They used that Shadow Flopper launchpad combo to regain the high ground, and now they're at the spot. They're at the ideal position here to hold this high ground. So as long as they play this smart and continue to pressure the players down below, they have a really solid chance here at walking away with the victory royale. Now though, a player that has a little bit less of a chance, it's Janman, and you see him just immediately get deleted as we begin talking about him, because the lobby realizes that he is there with no material and nothing to hold on. Speaking of that though, Dragster also struggling in a tough spot, doesn't have too much to work with, now just trying to survive here on the low ground, extremely exposed, and it's not going to work out, as Sad Boy Nate and Cole are also still in this game. So 2 of our top 3 teams trying to make something happen here.
Our game 1 winners still in it right now, and this could be a huge change up on the leaderboard coming into game number 4 so far. But Knack and Taco are still up on the high ground looking down, and it's a 2v2 situation right now, as here we go. Knack started the spray, but they exchanged back onto him, down to 34 shields at this point as the splashes start come down, and Sad Boy Nate's got so many heals down below, and hopefully can start utilizing these as he runs out of mats. The player goes down onto low ground. That's Taco down, so now Knack is left alive as a solo up above. He's dropped down to the front of the zone. He gets blocked out. He starts to run all the way around, trying to do what he can. The big 108 comes out, but no, it's not enough. Knack is picked up, and Sad Boy Nate and Cole win their second game of the day.
Well, if you ask me, one team that has potentially solidified their spot at the top, you'd have to say Cole and Company. I can't see them not being at the top of the leaderboard now with 7 eliminations in the victory royale. Another extremely solid game and solid performance from them. That's what we want to see. We want to see that consistency, because in a format like this, that consistency is going to be so key. But for teams like Steak and Rice and Domo, there's still a chance.
There's still a chance indeed, and you know, for these guys, we keep seeing them be successful in the early mid game, but after that, you know, we're not seeing too much going on in the end game. So they've obviously getting into engagements that we, potentially not benefiting them too much. But for Logic and Janman, you know, their early and mid have been fantastic so far, and Unfortunately, just got a little bit overcommitted with that height play and were picked up relatively early. A little bit too early, honestly, for them. And given the fact that they were in first coming into this, like, that's a pretty rough one for them to go down, because Taco's team, like we said, picked up another second, so that's a second, third, a second now. And Sad Boy's team, who was in third, now picked up a Victory Royale. So that's definitely going to push Logic's team out of that top slot, number one. And what I'm interested to see when we get back to the leaderboards later on is how close is the third to fourth? Because remember, top three is what's going to qualify them.
You're right. You are completely right, Reese. But before we can figure out what's going to happen here, we got to jump into a quick break. So make sure to go grab a drink, use the bathroom. Now's your chance. We'll be right back in just a few.
When inspiration strikes during midterms, you need Xfinity Internet. Fuel your passions with speeds fast enough to power all you do. Get inspired with awesome offers exclusively for students.
An unbelievable connection. It's unbelievable speeds. Can your internet do that?
Here it is, the final moments of the Code Red Qualifiers presented by Xfinity here. Life with Panda Reese Hub breaking it down for the final game of the tournament. The final opportunity for these duos to make their way to the finals tomorrow, and all of that prizing that is up for grabs. Man, oh man, it's exciting because it is still down to just a few points difference. I think really is the top three is kind of just up for grabs, but it really takes a breakout performance. Reese, let's do it. Let's dive into this leaderboard. Let's see what it's looking like officially here on the points. But man, as I said that, I'm feeling a little less confident in what I just said, because Nate and Flying Carrot, Nate and company, 130 points. In fourth place is 79 points.
Yeah, they've flown up ahead right now after 2 victory royales so far, but Taco and Knack, after again having super consistent 3 games, are up there in second, with Janman and Logic going down early in game number 3. Obviously, they've fallen from first to third so far, but again, for Figment and Yerful, still possible. The top 3 still absolutely possible. Same with Dodia and Prem, and same with Owen. And actually, to be honest, all the way down to basically all the top 10 at the same time. If any of these guys pick up a victory royale in game number 4, they could move on up into third, assuming obviously that Jan Man and Logic also go down early on. So we got to watch out really is that the top 3 players, the top 3 teams that are here, if they get eliminated early on in this match, it's very, very telling that any of the ones underneath could pick up a victory royale and just hit that qualification for tomorrow.
Yeah, and that's what they're going to be clamoring for. They know that this last game is all about the victory royale. So will we see them play a little bit more passive? Like Dodia and Prem, for example, pretty aggressive there in game number 1 and 2. We saw them slow down a bit, not completely slow down, let's be honest, there in game number 3. So will that continue to change here in game number 4? Because guess what? They don't have any other option. The victory royale is the only option for them to potentially take one of those top 3 spots. So they're definitely going to have to play this final game very differently. However, you never know. I think we've seen it time and time again in Fortnite history, where we think a leaderboard could potentially look solidified, and then all of a sudden we get into that final game and it just shifts.
Yeah, I mean, switch-ups happen in every single time, and it's the best thing when it happens in the final game, let's be really know. Like I said, I'm looking out for our top 3 teams to... Did you want to maybe go down early? I'm not wishing bad luck on them. I'm not saying that by any means, but it'll shake things up, make this a little bit interesting going into the final game, see if any of those other teams can pick up a victory royale and obviously overtake at that point and hit that qualification threshold of top 3. And remember, a victory royale is 41 points total, so that's going to be huge. And look, game number 4 is ready so far, the final match. So let's jump in and see exactly who we're kicking it off with.
And it is 2 of our top teams in FN Cole and Nate, aka Sad Boy Nate, and Mr. Flying Carrot. I'm not sure where the disconnect is on the name, but look, FN Cole, great branding in my opinion, right? Your in-game name, great branding. But what is Flying Carrot 37? I'm a little
like a generated username that you forget to change. you know, along with like awkward sponge 15.
You would think that with a system like that they would just keep it their IGN.
Yeah.
You know, like despite you having the option to change your name, or change it down to FN Cole instead of YouTube FN Cole, right? Like obviously it's more beneficial to have the YouTube in there if you are in, or for your in-game name, I should say. But it's less beneficial on the leaderboards, because every time we go back, I look at it and I'm like, I know who this is, but Flying Carrot just throws me for a loop.
I mean, also, when I've just gone on YouTube and searched for FN Cole, I ain't find anything. So,
wow.
So, you know, come on, Cole. You gotta hit it with the uploads. You're promoting this, and we're not even seeing it. You know, we're promoting it. I'm looking, but I'm not finding anything here.
Cole, I'm disappointed, man. We're actually shouting you out on one of the biggest stages here on the platform, and you're not branding yourself right. Listen, I could go into this all day. Reese, you know I could go into this all day. Fortunately for most of these players, they're set up for success. They're looking good. You see Taco KNG, you see Knack. I think they're already set up and ready to make this final game theirs, because look at that inventory. Look at how nicely they're situated. Knack obviously could have taken a half pot before he launched, but, you know, I'll let it slide.
Let it slide indeed. And I've gone on his TikTok because he's put it in his name just to check it out.
Okay.
I figured out that he was at the Fortnite Creative World Cup. There you go.
Wow.
So we're finding out stuff about players, and there you go. He actually posted. He put it on his socials name, and he posted. You love to see it. You see TTVs and players' names, and go on to check the streams. Oh, they've seen their gameplay from their POV and not live at all. So good job to all the players out there promoting and posting at the same time. You love to see it. On the grind in game, on the grind in content too.
Exactly. And looking at this, it's going to be pretty exciting. I'm pumped to see how this is going to unfold, especially for a player that made their way to World Cup. Like, it's kind of exciting to see them compete.
Creative World Cup. There's a difference.
Of course. But, the pressure of World Cup gets you ready for the pressure of these tournaments in a very similar way. So,
Definitely.
I mean, probably definitely a little bit more stressful for World Cup than here. But
a little bit. Maybe a little bit.
I think it's still nice prep. I think we've seen definitely even with World Cup, right? We saw a lot of players have standout performances in the online format because it's a little bit less pressure. But as soon as you're there in person, it's totally different. It's a totally different environment. It's actually, in my opinion, a more exciting environment. I feel like it would pump me up a lot more. But obviously, you also can hear less of the game audio because you got an audience screaming and cheering you on.
Yeah, it's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be crazy to get back to that environment. Hopefully.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. I'll be a sad boy Reese TV. That'll be my change if we're not next year. There you go. Maybe you'll see a YouTube resub going on to it. But some of our top teams right now, actually, first and fourth, potentially in a fight, in an engagement early on. And this could be devastating or game breaking for Dodia and Prem right now, as they're currently our fourth place team. Like I said, FN Cole and Sadboy Nate in first. So for them, it'd be interesting if they can manage to pick off. I'm actually incorrect. Sorry, they are not. They're in fifth, not in fourth place. But it's only a point behind, so doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if I'm slightly off at that point. But you can see that Sad Boy Nate and Cole are playing it very slowly, very, very slowly as the spray starts to come in from the opposing team so far. And slow engagement. But here we go. Hold on. Prem and Dodie are starting to close the distance as they're getting closer up. And Sad Boy Nate's deciding just to elevate himself even more, make it even more difficult from the push out, and the spray's starting to get traded. The shots going back and forth at the same time, and it's getting a little bit interesting now.
It is getting interesting. You see Sad Boy Nate actually collecting, getting some tags there, and Prem now trying to get involved. Definitely a risky fight for both teams. I think both teams, they're in contention, and they understand that these final moments are going to be way more valuable. But both of them said, you know what? At least Prem, I should say. Prem and Dodia know they need some eliminations on top of that placement. So that's why we see them actually being a little bit more aggressive. But if you're up above, if you are Cole and Sad Boy Nate, you are not risking the first place that you are holding so dear to yourself here in this final moment. You're not going to let Prem and Dodia take this out. So that's why we see them fighting so collectively, so calmly. But no, as I say that, Nate actually taking some tags there from a distance, unfortunately going to find himself falling a little bit short there with 125 HP, but the half pot's in the inventory ready to go. And no, as I say that, Cole actually drops down by himself and takes out Prem and Dodia. If I'm not mistaken, yep, it was a 2v1 situation there. Cole getting a nice little cleanup of that fight, and well-deserved.
Well-deserved indeed. And that's our fifth place team out, so they will not qualify for the finals tomorrow for Sad Boy Nate and FN Cole, though. They've kind of basically just pushed themselves further ahead in first place by those 4 points that they've just gained so far. An ideal play and a fan, a team who we've seen a lot of action from so far. We've seen a lot of action from these two guys right now, and I don't think they're necessarily a team that's potentially open for that top slot. But Owen's team is with Buzzy right now. They're in sixth place, and any eliminations could be critical for them.
It really can be. So I think that's why you see Owen and company being so aggressive. You saw them just immediately push up onto the roof there in the orchard and try to connect something, but it's not going to work out. They have to play this calmly because there are now 6 players in total, 3 teams trying to make something of this moment. And it looks like Ideal Play and company are going to be struggling here a bit because they took a lot of damage. Fortunately, they do have the heals to kind of get back into this. But with Fast Fox, you have Casual Uber, you have Owen. I mean, there are so many players just on top of each other here. You cannot afford it to take any risks.
Can't indeed. You see Fast Fox starting to cramp all the way up onto high ground right now, and he's got that best position, but big shots come out of Casual Uber, and he is now down. That's Nafan that's going to pick him up, and Owen's starting to spray from down below to try and gain high ground, and he's all the way up now on top of the tower as well, and the shots start coming up from Buzzy and Owen, and these shots are just trading back and forth, back and forth. Now this pressure comes onto Nafan's roof, and he starts to drop down. The shots start to come out. Owen's still got plenty of AR ammo to do that with, and this fight's just going to drag on out as they're sitting on high ground, and you'd expect them to start trying to close the gap and go for some walls, get a bit closer, and try and end this engagement quicker before a third, fourth, fifth, sixth party start to roll on up.
Yeah, they need to be super careful. The last thing they can afford here is for another team to get involved in this. There's already 3 teams trying to make something happen here in this moment, and a 4th team would just devastate the odds here for Owen and company, who are in the best position to get one of those top 3 spots right now out of these teams. But looking at the way this is playing out, the fan and company trying to hold this. Owen trying to get involved, try to get the shots. He takes some piece control, doesn't connect anything quite yet, and the fan doing a good job of holding out and now creating some space here, and he's going up. He's going to go for the high ground, try to take over it from this player. He gets a nice little box there, but no, actually the player slips out of one of those walls, and ultimately Nafan now runs out of material and has to completely drop and disengage.
But he picks up Owen, drops straight into the box, and it's all over all of a sudden at this point. The fan does go down, but Ideal's going to be there to pick up the res onto him. So it seemed like it was going slow. It got a bit crazy in the end. They all just jumped in, but it seems like Ideal and the fan have come out on top. 4 eliminations total for them, and that is huge for them because they definitely need that if they want to go all the way up into the leaderboard, similar to Dragster. But hold on, he's exchanging shots back onto him from Rennie, who's also been playing very, very well to date. At the same time, Dragster in our 8th place slot so far. He's a lot of points to be able to catch up the victory round, a bunch of elims. He's already managed to get 4 points with those 2 elims so far, and you have to be careful here. They're very high up. They've done a good job understand that. Drop down and hit the big shot onto Rennie at the same time here now, and again, 2 different fights going on at the same time. There's a fight very, very close by in that map in the bottom right at the same time as Crazy and Dragster having a little fight of their own here, see if they can exchange any shots, but only small ones so far. Little 40s, little chip shots, and nothing substantial yet.
Yeah, you know, the pacing of these fights is kind of interesting. We haven't seen anybody be quite as, I want to call it passive aggressive because they literally have been pretty aggro in certain situations and then very passive as soon as they get close. Like, yeah, I feel like they get to a point where they're like, okay, we're doing good, we have an opportunity, and then they just kind of stay and they just don't do much. But the opposite is actually in effect here for Yerful. Yerful and Figment, again, going into this, we're in 4th place. Ooh. Figment now out of the game, or at least potentially out of the game here with that knock. Yerful now going to have to act as a solo player. Fortunately for him, he does have a great inventory to do so. But for Dragster, another player here in the top 10, he's got to be careful. Crazy's out. He's going up against a team of 2, and it's actually Rennie and Maple, another team there in 9th place. Oh, and oh my gosh, as I say that, he says, you know what, Panda, I don't care how passive you want me to be. I'm gonna get this elimination, but no, he actually ends up falling to Maple. Maple now able to get Rennie back into this game, and it's looking up here for Rennie and company as they've definitely climbed at least 1 spot here on the leaderboard.
After hitting all of those AR shots to get into the box and to whiff the pump shot that mattered in the 1v2 is a feel bad moment. It truly is, where you've hit it. You're at that peak, that pinnacle. The concentration has been paid off at that point. You've popped off, picking up a single elim, and then it's just all wrapped. It's all over for you very soon. So unfortunate for them. Almost saw a sick clutch and a sick comeback, but we got traded onto them. But for Cole, or Carrot, as we should call him, alongside Nate right now, they're playing the slow game. They're definitely in need of just chilling in this bush, checking if someone walks on by, and that's, to be honest, looks like an interesting play, but in all honesty, this is what you really should be doing in some of these games where a lot of players are going to be looking to be aggressive. If you build a big box here, a lot of players are going to notice that. They're going to W key you, and if they're playing for the win, they can sit in a bush. A lot of the other players will fight on by, and they can just rotate away freely when they see the next zone.
I mean, as you can see, like you just talked about moments ago, players are looking to be more aggressive. This is their last opportunity to climb the leaderboard, and elimination points is going to be a key factor in that. And so, playing that passive bush play, it really is the option. We used to make fun or have fun talking about bush campers in chapter 1, but in chapter 2, the way that the bushes are structured, they're way more valuable. The large scale bushes provides so many advantages that we've seen time and time again work in competitive. So that's why it's going to work out here for Cole and Nate, potentially just trying to skate on by. But for players like Rennie, like Maple, who find themselves in 9th place going into this game, they need every elimination they can get if they want to claim one of those top 3 spots.
They can, and that's why you can see them being aggressive, trying to take these fights they can at the edge of zone. But I was going to say taking a fight at the edge of zone, but essentially they just found a crow. Okay, they just found a purple pump from a crow. I take it back. I thought they were going for the W key at that point. They found a bird in the air, gave them a purple pump. But if you do look nearby, there is another team in Risky Reels so far. I want to see what they're going to do. I want to see how aggressive they're playing. They know that they need eliminations. We know that they need eliminations. But do you know what they should do about it? It's Brooklyn's team that's in there. But back onto FN Cole. The bush camping appears to have not paid off. But hold on, the big 78 shot comes out and tags up above. The 96 comes to finish it off. One angle onto Gamma to pick him up at the same time. And now it's a 2v1 situation trying to get him back into a box that has his own. And the shakedown comes through for Nate. You can hopefully be able to find where the opponent is, and there we go. We see him on the same layer, very, very close by. That arrow is going to be above his head on their screen, at least to pinpoint where he is. And he's trying to dip. He's trying to get out of here. You can see he's jumped into a car at the same time. But for Cole and Nate, they're going to have none of that. Potentially go for the spray. And no, I was wrong. But actually, Taco over there is now trying to get into the fight and pick it up. And he's over. And it's not going to be Nate that picked up that elimination. I think it was going to be Knack and Taco at the same time.
Yeah, and that's going to be huge for them because obviously Nate and company, they're going to want to focus on getting or maintaining that first place spot. And guess what? The person that is in the best position to take it from them is in fact Taco and Knack. So for them to lose that elimination to them, it's kind of a worst case scenario for a situation of who you could lose that elimination to. So
absolutely,
it's going to be interesting to see how Knack and Taco play this out because they don't know. Like, obviously, we know. They don't know that it's Nate and Cole on the other side of this. They just know that there's another team close by. So we could see Taco and Knack end up being a little aggressive. And ultimately, this could be a first versus second place fight. And that is something we haven't gotten to see quite yet.
I just want to know where these players are getting these gold pistols from because now Taco has one. Am I missing something? I think I'm missing something this season. I know. Either it's RNG or there's an AI that sells them somewhere and I'm just missing out on this information. You know what? I'll figure it out after the show. I'll come back. I'll tell everyone where they get these gold pistols because apparently I'm the one who doesn't understand. But Logic and Janman currently our 3rd place team, or was our 1st place team after game number 2 with their huge 13 elimination victory royale. Now trying to hold the team on the edge of zone, trying to elevate themselves, give themselves a little bit better sight lines so these players can't rotate through, and it's ideal play. And Nafan, 6 eliminations so far in their name, and they seem to be panicking, it would seem like, I would guess, by the comms right now. By that edit play goes down, but the shots come out. Nafan's picked up, and so is ideal play. Probably the 2 easiest eliminations of Logic and Janman's probably entire playing career so far, if I was to guess.
I would agree. I think definitely a misplay on their part. They were doing a good job there, W King, and getting the eliminations that they needed to make this comeback. But you have to avoid fighting in Storm because there's going to be teams like Janman and Logic who are going to sit on that edge and who are going to wait until you come up close and try to rotate late into the Storm. So smart play on Logic and Janman, but unfortunate there for them. They find themselves falling here a little bit early, but a team that hasn't fallen quite yet, it is Nade and Cole, who, by all intents and purposes, are next to their 2nd place rivals and could be engaging here soon. You see actually Taco trying to retake some of the builds in this area, whereas Cole is trying to do the same thing. It's kind of funny to watch them go back and forth and just exchange floors there for a moment. But no, Cole and Nate now found their target, and I believe that is actually, in fact, Figment and Yerful over there that they are focusing off in the distance. So they have to be careful because Figment, they're trying to climb into 3rd place. They want to take Jamman and Logic's spot there in 3rd because they found themselves in 4th going into this game. With the right amount of eliminations and a victory royale, it would be an easy takeover for third.
Looks like a lot of placements already come through. Look at the players in the map in the bottom right. So definitely been a ton of aggression in this final game so far. A lot of eliminations gone through, and right now I'm interested by AC. Taco's teammate in the cone, sitting looking out, and if Cole over peaks a little bit, this could be a big shot comes out from him onto Cole, and that could change the whole dynamic. He tried to go for it there. It was Knack was trying to go for it, but it just did not end up working out. He ended up missing, timing it incorrectly, and now players know they're going to be sitting into the cones. But for Cole, man, the whole lobby seems to be starting to understand where they're positioned and that they're essentially over-peaking. But for Knack down below, you see the Shadow Floppers in his inventory again. We already know how they're going to be playing it out, but I'm not sure this game will even make it to the moving zones based on the aggression so far.
Yeah, they're going to have to be careful. They cannot afford to be too crazy here, and that's what we're seeing. These teams, these players are just taking a bit of a risk, especially looking at the way that this zone is positioned. And two teams actually are already over there, and there it is. Like I was talking about, or getting ready to say, the lack of positioning here, or the improper positioning, ultimately just resulted in Taco going down, which is our second place team. So if Figment and Yurful can actually clean that up, that means second is out, and Figment and Yurful have the potential to climb. You see, they weren't able to get the pickup there. So now it's just about who can hold on. But other players are beginning to pressure Yurful and Figment, so they're going to have to disengage. This is actually, of course it is. It is Logic and Janman finding themselves the first into zone, and they're looking to be relentless as far as pressuring the remainder of the lobby, trying to rotate in.
Everyone hitting the pads right now. There's not that many of them, so it's easy to pick guys like Rennie out of the sky. We already saw them do that earlier with the players who were stuck in the back of the zone. So they've already got keen eyes on the players flying through the sky onto Despising now at the same time. He's getting beamed down to no HP with his teammate Jack starts to come on out. In the whole lobby, the players across there. Maple also got eyes on him too as Nax making the rotate in the back of the zone alongside Cole. Figment, basically all of our top 5 teams are basically still in it to win it right now, and I'm not sure that the other teams are not going to have gotten enough placement points to make sure that even if they win right now for Figment's team, I'm not sure they can make it into a top 3.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's going to be tough because Jamman and Logic have stepped up to the plate. They got eliminations after elimination, and on top of that, they found themselves in a good spot in zone to where they can just continue to pressure on. I think it would be very tough here for Logic and Jamman to lose this. You see the launch pads in the inventory, the tons of material that they already have set up, and now a huge upgrade in a legendary assault rifle. That is definitely a GG for these other players. But Nate and Cole, they're still in it. They're still our first place team here, and they're looking to secure that top spot here as they begin to pressure other players close by. They're trying to identify where anybody else is, and not going to be able to find anybody. So the launch is on, and no, as I say that, the pressure is coming through. A lot of players looking in their direction, and that is a tough call. Taking a launch pad with the amount of players remaining here in these final moments is definitely very risky. You see Logic actually picking up your fall there, and Cole getting the full elimination and potentially the refresh there. Logic actually just playing around on top of the cube, having some fun there, taking some shots from a distance. Smart play on his part, didn't have to use too many materials, and there it is. Despising actually going down there. Jack now trying to play the shadow, the cube flopper. It's not going to work out. He ends up going down as well. Janman just pressuring now, getting huge tags onto our first place team in Cole and Nate. It is a tough position. It looks like just about 3 teams remaining in all of this, Figment being one of them, but no, Figment is now officially out there. Yurful fell just moments ago too, so now it is a 2v2 situation. Our number 1 team going up against our number 3 team going into this final game, and here it is, the final moments. Who's going to be able to walk away with the final victory royale of the day?
It's going to be the victory moment, 2v2, like you said, first 3 third, and what really matters is the elimination difference here. If Logic managed to win this, will they have gotten enough elimination points to overtake and take first place in the great split from them up on high ground, getting multiple angles, but the launch pad comes on out, the big beam comes out from Janman, he hits every shot so far. Now Nate at the back of the zone being pressured by the storm, not only by Janman and Nate at the same time, and here he's got the floppers, he gets big beams out onto Janman, however, down to 44 HP, but Will it be enough? Is Jan Man's time going to run out? He's got 1 tick to HP and he's still inside the zone here. It seems like no materials down on the low ground, and Nate has to drop down. The cones come out, the edits come out, and it's all over for Nate, and Logic's team alongside Jan Man is going to pick up that final victory royale, and the second victory royale for them as well.
What a beautiful finish to wrap this all up. 10 eliminations and the victory royale. Third place, potentially climbing as far as first place there with that great performance. We saw what we saw from Cole and Nate, and it was solid, right? Second place is still very, very good. There wasn't a ton of eliminations on them, so that could have been the game that ends up shifting it. Fortunately for both teams, it looks like they secured their spot into the finals for tomorrow, but we got to talk about it. There's some other teams that were so close in contention and unfortunately fell a little bit short.
Yeah, you know, guys like Figment and Your Fault definitely had a really, really good run, but at the same time, it just, you know, it wasn't enough for those kind of guys. Same with John and Mizo alongside Anderson at the same time. Ideal and the Fan, teams that we've just seen popping off. We see Dragster and Crazy on screen right now with that crazy beam, and Maple's team alongside Rennie as well. That obviously all players that we're seeing right now, unfortunately, just did not make the cut, did not make the top 3, and will not qualify through to the finals, which will obviously be tomorrow as well. And for our top teams, we obviously have Logic, Jan Man, alongside who we just saw right there was Nax's team as well. You know, big performances from them all the way through today.
Yeah, big performances. I mean, look, we've been looking for some exciting duo gameplay, and we got it. This has been one of the most exciting forms of aggression that we've seen. Like the way that these players just fought and handled every single fight. I mean, it was just meticulous, and honestly, props to Jam Man and Logic. They did a very good job of showing how effective you can be when you balance eliminations with placement. They had great aggression, but they still found themselves taking home some victory royales. But until we can figure out what happened here with the leaderboard, we got to jump into a quick break. So make sure to stay tuned, and we'll be right back. Here it is. We are back with the results of the Code Red Qualifiers presented by Xfinity. Reese and I got a little sneak peek at the leaderboard, but we're excited to share it with you because it was just pressure and relentless effort from these players today to show that they have what it takes to climb up to the top. And that's why, without further ado, the leaderboards are here. Let's show you who ended up coming out on top. And it is, in fact, Janman and Logic slipping just above Nate and company for the first time in the tournament.
Yeah, and that was basically that final game is what it all went down to. That final, who was going to get the victory royale and who wasn't. And obviously Janman and Logic managed to capitalize on that in that last game, game number 4. And that's just what pushed them over the edge to take that first place from them. So huge congratulations still to Janman, Logic, to Nate and Carrot, and obviously to Taco and Knack as well, who are 3 teams today who have played absolutely fantastic and qualified for tomorrow's finals to play with a lot of the big dogs of the region. You know, some of the best names that any East has to offer.
Yeah, and honestly, they deserve it. They were so consistent through all of these games. I mean, it speaks to the caliber of player that they are, but they better get ready because it's not going to be easy tomorrow. These finals are stacked with some of the best players from the region coming to compete in this duo format. So I'm excited. The Code Red finals are going to be incredible. If you don't know, it is happening tomorrow. So make sure to tune in for that. It's going to be Monster, D-Face, and Shia Wager actually breaking all of that down for you. So go ahead, check that out. But before we go, we got to thank our sponsor. We got to thank them. Xfinity, thank you so much for making this happen. And for those at home, make sure you're powering your game with Xfinity Internet. Our Code Red sponsor for today, Xfinity, delivers reliably fast gig Wi-Fi for clutch moments and big exams. Get inspired with awesome student-exclusive offers for watching and playing your favorite games. Plus, get access to amazing perks like a $100 prepaid card, 6 months of Amazon Music Unlimited, and no-term contracts. Learn more at xfinity.com/student. Gig speed Wi-Fi requires gigabyte internet and compatible X-Fi gateway. Actual speeds vary and not guaranteed. So thank you all. Thank you. Again, so much. It's been a pleasure. Reese Hub, do you have any final words for the folks at home? Because I'm at a loss for words, honestly.
You know, great games today. I'm honestly mainly looking forward to watching tomorrow. Yeah, I'm not here on the talking over it. You're going to hear some more beautiful voices that are not mine or Panda's over it tomorrow. So honestly, I'm looking forward to sitting down, putting it on my TV while I sit in bed, relax, and watch. So tomorrow's going to be some fantastic games. We've got a taster of obviously the top 3 teams from today who have qualified through into that, and I hope they do really well tomorrow.
I hope so too. And again, tomorrow, tune in. Monster, D-Face, Shia Wager, they're going to be breaking it down for you for the Code Red Finals presented by Xfinity. But that's going to be it from us. Thank you so much again for tuning in. We appreciate all of you for being a part. And until next time, take it easy. Have a good night.